This is Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
And good morning, everybody. Welcome to Talking Left. We, of course, are a proudly progressive talk show where we remind you liberal is not a bad word.
In fact, it's becoming increasingly popular.
Yes, it is. Good morning, Shano.
Good morning.
So, as usual, we like to fill you in on the news you may have missed that may not have gotten enough coverage. And we have to start out with something very, very important today. Something that libertarians especially may be very happy to hear. Yes, Think Progress reports that clicking online ads is much more likely to deliver malware than surfing porn sites. According to Cisco's annual 2013 security report, Internet users are 182 times more likely to get malware from clicking on online ads than from visiting porn sites. Very important news, isn't it, Shano?
It is. Now, that makes so much sense when you go through my cache on my computer. I'm just a shopper.
That's it.
I'm a
totally
shopper.
It. Yes. They report that the dangers, essentially, of getting malware or viruses are often hidden in plain sight through exploit-laden online ads that are distributed to legitimate websites. Yes, so they recommend installing software that blocks ads like we use.
Yeah. It's kind of it upsets me, though, because we got that story from Think Progress. Think Progress has ads on it. That's part of how they're supported.
Oh, that's so interesting.
It bothers me, to have to put the ad block up there because, like, for example, we go to Crooks and Liars. Love Crooks and Liars. Love Nicole Bell. Everybody over there. But, you'll see a little thing. It'll say, please undo your ad block and support Crooks and Liars. So I'm caught between a rock and a hard place here. I wish we could, perhaps there's a market out there for someone who distributes ads on the internet that way that cleans those things out.
That's a great idea. Perhaps that's an untapped market.
It is, definitely for me.
Yes. They also report that common sites like shopping and search engines are 21 to 27 times more likely to deliver malicious content than even counterfeit software sites. So really, it seems that online ads are your biggest risk at getting your computer
infected. And by the way, that's true
with
of Crooks and Liars. I'm looking at Think Progress. I don't see ads actually here. I think it's more of a subscription contribution type thing. So I should rephrase that. I know that Crooks and Liars does use ad.
Yes.
Supported.
Yes, but regardless, apparently, yay for libertarians, all those porn sites you're visiting, unlikely to cause virus infection.
Well, think about it. All the corporations, they don't have any scruples, but the porn sites, at least they do. We're not going to give you malware.
Yes, it's all about perspective, I suppose.
Seriously.
And I love the Cisco's commentary. Cisco, the one who generated this report. With great connection comes great responsibility. Nicely stated, Cisco.
Yeah.
In other internet news, many people are aware that last year, the online community helped stop acts like SOPA and PIPA and the Privacy Invasive Cybersecurity Act of 2012. However, a lot of new internet laws are going to be battled out in Congress in 2013.
New ones.
Yes. Common Dreams reports that the Consumer Fraud and Abuse Act, CFAA, is likely to be reconsidered. This was one of the laws responsible for the unjust prosecution of Aaron Swartz. Essentially, there are great members of Congress proposing that the law be reformed to reduce the draconian principles and penalties that led to Aaron Swartz's prosecution. And senators like Ron Wyden have voiced support for these type of lessening of sentences and making clearer definitions that can lead to prosecution.
Also, using the phrase in the last story, with great power comes great responsibility. That was a prosecutorial overreach, I think, in Aaron's case.
Yes.
Because just because you have the law in the books doesn't mean it's intended for just because it fits in within the elements of this crime doesn't mean it was the intent of that crime to cover those types of of actions.
Right. And what led to that are some loose definitions because
Sure.
that law was originally enacted in 1986.
Right.
So, obviously...
You can adjust for inflation. You can't adjust for technology.
Right. There's just no way to encompass all the changes to Internet connectivity.
So you need a Congress that actually can do something.
Exactly. There's also likely to be an update to the Electronic Communications Privacy Act. This is the law that allows the government to monitor emails and social networks without a warrant. Many great senators, including...
It's funny, there's a law out there that allows them to not. It tells them they can't. It's, I don't know what, the Fourth
Amendment, yes.
Oh, who cares? We'll just pass a law anyways.
Senator Leahy and House Reps Goodlatte and Lofgren want to introduce legislation to require that they have a warrant to search your emails or online communications.
The funny thing is that there's already a rule on the book that says you need a warrant.
Yes. Representative Markey and Senator Al Franken are also pursuing restricting government and corporate use of your cell phone's GPS, citing United States v. Jones that recently ruled GPS does require a warrant when it was connected to somebody's car.
Right.
But
that was the government put a GPS on a car, and the Supreme Court shockingly said, no, you can't. You need a warrant for that.
Right. Well, that
is a search.
They are asking Congress to require clear notification and disclosure when a company collects and shares user information, including geological information.
Geological or geographical?
Geolocation. How about that's what
geological. I'm like, okay, mica. Do I have a sedimentary cell phone?
When your phone is a rock, I'm not really sure how that fits in. Another fight. There will be another fight on cybersecurity. This is kind of the same lines that SOPA and PIPA were fought against. A new version of the Information Cybersecurity Bill called CISPA or CISPA, essentially trying to stop the giant and vague cybersecurity loophole in privacy laws, saying, along the same lines that the police or other government agencies should require a warrant in order to access your information.
Yeah, it bothers me that we're having this discussion because the baseline should be you are required to have a warrant.
Right.
It should already be there.
Right.
It is already there.
Yes.
The fact that they do it anyways, and you have to pass a law to say, no, you actually do need to follow the Constitution, really, it's a backwards way of approaching it, and it shocks me that we have to do it this way.
Well, and it's interesting that you see, good representatives and senators fighting this at more than one angle, listening to their constituents that this is an issue, that privacy online is an issue, and people don't want their online communications tracked and monitored without, a court approval.
Yeah, there's a great book out there called Privacy. Privacy is really only for rich people nowadays.
Seems like it.
It costs a lot of money to keep your stuff private.
Yes. The FBI is also silent about a, quote, backdoor to the web. They essentially want wiretap-friendly backdoors to all online communication. When the EFF...
Really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
The EFF, I'm not sure exactly who that is has submitted a Freedom of Information lawsuit seeking records to require them to, justify...
Electronic Frontier Foundation.
Thank you. Seeking to justify...
They brought a lot of the lawsuits against the phone companies when it came to the warrantless wiretaps and
right.
things like that. Huge, very, big supporter.
All they're asking for is that the FBI justify its need to expand online monitoring. That's all they're asking for, and they can't even get that.
The backdoor thing really, it's like, I don't know. It just really...
Well, and a lot of people worry that this quote-unquote...
We might search your house, so make sure you leave a window unlocked for us.
Right.
We're not saying we're going to. We're not going to tell you if we did, but, make it easier for us so we don't have to break down the door.
Right, and many online activists and Internet security professionals worry that this quote-unquote backdoor is really a cybersecurity issue.
And on top of it, by the way, when you leave those back doors open, it's not only you that can get into them. There are hackers out there.
That's what they're saying.
Look at the New York Times getting hacked by China 4 times.
Right. Twitter just recently got hacked, 250,000 users.
Right.
But they say it threatens basic privacy on the web. So those are all things we need to watch out for in 2013 and support or,
That was one of your predictions, I think.
oppose. What?
Looking out for privacy type of issues in the coming year.
I'm glad you remember. Other stuff we'll need to watch out for in 2013 and beyond is the Republicans' new attempt to fight the Tea Party. Yes, the biggest donors.
I thought they were all just happy, huggy, and all 43 of us are going to do this and rah, rah, Republicans.
Well, I think this is actually...
Yay, Ted Cruz, you're the best.
I think this is going to actually work out quite well for members of the Democratic Party, because the biggest donors in the Republican Party are financing a new group to recruit seasoned candidates and protect Senate incumbents from far-right conservatives and Tea Party enthusiasts.
You mean establishment candidates?
Yes, and
no rogue people out there.
This new group called the Conservative Victory Party.
I think this is my theory on this. This was a way of creating Crossroad GPS without having to fire Karl Rove.
Yes, because he is involved. Where is it here?
No, he is involved?
He is involved.
Oh,
the Conservative Victory Project, which is backed by Karl Rove and his allies who built American Crossroads.
Backed by? Is
Yes.
he part of it?
It's only listed, according to the New York Times, backed by. Perhaps that could be his predictions went wrong because he couldn't control the Tea Party, or because, he couldn't hack the election, but that's neither, that hasn't been proven.
Wow. I want to become a Republican just because if I screw up at my job, I still have it.
Yes. Essentially, they feel that the party blew a significant number of races because, quote, the wrong candidate was selected. In other words, they want to control the Todd Akins, the Steve Kings, and the Richard Murdoch of the party.
You're talking about Illinois. You're talking about Missouri. Yeah, Engel out in Nevada.
Right. They want to control these Tea Party Republicans.
I'm not a witch in Connecticut.
Yeah, what was her name?
O'Donnell.
Yes, Christine O'Donnell.
Yeah.
I think this is great news because essentially they're saying, screw you, Tea Party. We're going to continue with our establishment Republicans. And if ever there was a time that could really split the Republican Party, they're just taking a wedge and hammering it right in.
Agreed.
Yeah. I think this will be really interesting to watch. As the New York Times so eloquently put it, the effort would be a new twist on the Republican versus Republican warfare that has consumed the party's primary races in recent years. They're saying they will go as far as, running ads and literally, where is it here? Hard-edge campaign tactics, including television advertising against candidates whom party leaders see as unelectable and a drag on efforts to win the Senate. Interesting, isn't it?
It is, because if they lose Tea Party support in the Republican Party, they're going to have, no chance. Other than rigging elections, of course.
Well, and what they're worried about is these Tea Partiers that primary Republicans from the right. Yeah.
They're giving the finger to their base right there.
Well, and it's really interesting that they're the ones that promoted the Tea Party. They're the ones that promoted these hard right candidates. And now that they see it won't allow them to win and have control over...
They courted them. They thought it would be a great thing.
Yep. So how's that working out for you, Koch brothers? Yeah.
They've created a monster.
In abortion-related news, of course, with Roe v. Wade's 40th anniversary taking place recently, a new law, or a new proposed law in New Mexico, would essentially imprison rape victims and doctors for carrying out an abortion under the guise of tampering with evidence.
It's an interesting idea.
State Representative Catherine Brown, Republican of New Mexico, would add the forced choice between prison or an unwanted pregnancy to the already grueling proceedings of a rape case.
What's behind it is disgusting. The legal question is that tampering with evidence? For example, I gave you this hypothetical. Somebody comes into the hospital. They've been involved in an accident, drunk driving accident. The patient was the driver. They think that driver was drunk. Doctor draws the blood. Cop comes in and says, I want that blood. Doctor throws it down, doesn't believe in, prosecuting this guy. He knows
Right.
him or whatever, throws the blood away. The doctor's going to jail. The question is fetus evidence, and is there a less intrusive way? And the other side is the policy argument. Are women who get raped and want to have an abortion then for not going to claim, bring a prosecution in order to get that abortion?
Right.
Because I would imagine that the law will be written in such a way, if they're going to be hard-nosed about this, that if you have the abortion, then you go to the prosecutor and say, I was raped, they're going to say, you're going to jail because you destroyed evidence.
Well, and she has since clarified that she isn't intending to target victims of sexual assault, but has not extended the same protections for doctors, nurses, or other people related to their care. So, okay, you might not go to jail, but you have to find a doctor who's willing to possibly go to jail so that you don't have to carry a rapist baby. Yes, should be called the Rapist Bill of Rights, right?
Yeah, really.
So, and
insanity.
Last but definitely not least, just because it's funny, in the news story.
This is the top of Drudge.
Newsmax reports that Reagan's childhood home is to become a parking lot for the Obama Presidential Library.
Oh, my God.
Yes. However...
Wait a minute. This is fantastic.
Yes. Newsmax reported Marty Lotman from Newsmax said the University of Chicago Medical Center has announced plans to turn Ronald Reagan's childhood home in Chicago into a parking lot for Barack Obama's library. This story totally gained speed, was up on Washington Times.
Drudge.
It's the new talking point on Drudge. However, not correct. I'm sure everybody's really shocked by that. Yes. In fact,
it was like some kind of historical, they were going for historical protection or something like that?
Yes. They were saying that it should count as a historical landmark. However, Reagan only lived in the home for less than a year. And in order to qualify for a historic landmark, the commission would have to conclude that the president had to live there during what he called Reagan's productive years. So
there's a joke in there.
In addition, Jay Carney went out and said, the report is false. Shocking, I know. Well said, Jay Carney.
Reagan's productive years. You'll have to point out when those actually were. I can see the destructive years. That would be, 21 to when he left office.
Yeah. In addition, a spokesman for the University of Chicago said, yes, they do plan to tear it down, but for a medical and biological research building.
They're going to clone there.
Yes, that's it. Not for President Obama's future library. So that's the news for today. Lots more coming up on today's show. We have great guests, Juan Esclante of Dream Activists to talk about the immigration plan, Mitch Malasky of the DC Sports Beat, get a Super Bowl prediction or two, David Bender of Progressive Voices, and David Pakman of the David Pakman Show. So huge show today on Talking Left, Guestapalooza, and we're very excited
See
about
what
it.
happens when we take a week off?
Yes, I know.
Like a stack a couple inches high on that desk there.
Exactly.
No stories to get to.
You are listening to Talking Left on SoFlo Radio, Progressive Blend Radio, We Act Radio, 1480 AM in Washington, D.C. We're very excited to be here. Lots of great stuff coming up. Stick around.
Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? They paved paradise, put up a parking lot. Hey, farmer, put away the DDT now. Give me spots on my apples, or leave me the...
Okay, astronaut, you're up. You'll be meeting with Wish Kid Brandon.
Roger, Brandon.
His wish is to see a space shuttle launch.
All systems are go. We are clear for liftoff.
This year, more than 27,000 children will be diagnosed with a life-threatening medical condition.
And, Cowboy,
Yes, ma'am.
you'll be meeting with Shayla at a dude ranch in San Antonio.
Let's saddle up.
Some will miss school, some will miss time with their family and friends.
Princess, are you here?
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for rescuing me from that evil witch.
Juliana wishes for a princess-themed room makeover.
That sounds magical.
But with your help, the Make-A-Wish Foundation can lift their spirits and give them a special kind of hope.
Pirate,
Yar!
you're up for Isaac's wish.
Aye, aye, Captain.
The wishes of thousands of children are waiting to come true.
You can help make my wish happen. Visit wish.org today.
My name is Joe Thompson. I'm 29 years old and have a career that I love as a systems analyst. Career. It still sounds cool to say that word. I never could have gotten on this path without a college degree. And if the college me were here, he'd tell you.
I never would have gotten to college without Big Brothers Big Sisters. I could have ended up anywhere, on the streets even. But college? Joe Thompson? Not likely. My big brother helped me out. He taught me I could do anything, at a time when a lot of people were saying just the opposite.
And to a 7-year-old, that means a lot. My big brother's name is Phil. And Phil is the reason that this 7-year-old grows up to be a systems analyst.
Whether you donate money or time, you're helping Big Brothers Big Sisters help a child. And that can last a lifetime. Start something today at BigBrothersBigSisters.org. Brought to you by Big Brothers Big Sisters and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Brad Friedman, your friendly citizen investigative blogger, journalist, troublemaker, muckraker, and all-around swell fellow from BradBlog.com. Join me for the Bradcast every Wednesday from 3 to 4 p.m. 1 hour of troublemaking and muckraking ripped from the pages of BradBlog.com and sometimes from the dark recesses of my mind. We'll have investigative interviews with newsmakers, we'll call out the liars, frauds, and phonies, and we'll even give kudos to the good guys if we can find any. Stories you won't hear anywhere else. We'll report on politics, elections, election reform, mainstream corporate media failure, media reform, global warming denialism, and everything before, during, and after. Join me for the Bradcast every Wednesday, now a full hour, 3 to 4 p.m., right here on Pacifica Radio's KPFK, and coast to coast and around the globe on kpfk.org.
Hank Action News is proud to be sponsored by Healthcare for America Now. HCAN is a national coalition of more than 1,000 groups in 50 states, representing 30 million people. HCAN works to promote, defend, implement, and improve the Affordable Care Act at both the state and federal levels. They also try to protect Medicare and Medicaid, increase corporate accountability, and confront forces that seek to take away critical services. HCAN believes in creating jobs, not cutting programs people depend on. HCAN runs comprehensive issue campaigns that mobilize people at the grassroots and define the public debate. HCAN is fighting to protect, implement, and improve the new health care law through national and state-based legislative and regulatory campaigns built on grassroots action, public education, communications, policy analysis, and groundbreaking research. HCAN has become a respected voice and national leader on health care while continuing to focus on aggressive field activity. Support HCAN, Healthcare for America Now.
You're listening to Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me and Shano here, live on We Act Radio, SoFlo Radio, Progressive Blend Radio. And, of course, you can download the podcast for free over at TalkingLeft.com. Subscribe to it on iTunes.
Free is good.
Free is good. Did you know, Shane, that the Republican Party is committed to civil rights?
Okay.
Despite evidence...
Sounds like a setup.
Despite evidence to the contrary, Nevada Republicans claim they are tired of their conflicts with, quote, the party's historic commitment to civil rights. I don't really recall such a historic commitment, but they are using that talking point to now support a pathway to citizenship. I'm sure that had nothing to do with them losing in elections, specifically losing the Latino vote.
Considering there's a large Latino population in Nevada.
Yes. Nevada has the nation's fifth highest Latino population at 26.5%. Immigrants there play a major role in the state's economy. So as such, they have now come out stating that they support a pathway to citizenship.
Good.
Yes.
You know what? I know we wanted... I love blaming Republicans, especially when they're to blame and all that. But if they come around on this, in reaction to the electorate, that's exactly what our representatives should do. Now, are they decades behind usually on everything? Yes. But once they get there, you say, welcome. And it's time to do it, and let's do it right, and let's not make it 75 years, and we got to build 300 walls that are all electrified in between. If they want to do some reasonable reform, let's do it. And if you want to take all the credit for it, fine. We're going to get it done. And people are smarter than that anyways.
I absolutely agree. And what I find interesting is, in a big difference from this Gang of Eight's recent immigration compromise, which includes saying pretty much nothing can be done until the border has been secured.
And that gets to be determined by whom?
By Republican governors and legislators.
In border states.
Like
Governor
Jan
Goodhair.
Brewer.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rick Perry.
The Crooked Finger and Governor Goodhair. They're going to decide when the pathway of citizenship can start working.
Yeah, but Republicans in Nevada have put out a statement saying, quote, "We support a pathway to citizenship for undocumented immigrants that would require registering with the government and the ability to communicate in English, performing military or other community service, and proof of financial responsibility as required by USCIS. 150 years ago, our country fought a bloody civil war. The war affirmed we have one class of citizens, American."
I like that last line.
I really do as well. And what I find interesting is what that doesn't include. There's not a contingency there. This isn't saying we will push for this once our border in Nevada is secure.
Right. I also don't see in there, I see the financial, what is it called?
Financial responsibility as required by USCIS. I'm unfamiliar with exactly what that requires.
Right. What I find concerning in some of the other bills being floated around, you got to pay, huge penalties.
And back taxes.
Huge back tax. And does the taxes include penalties and fines and interest? So it therefore becomes economically impossible because it's not like a lot of the undocumented workers around here are making big bucks.
Well, and back taxes is really a straw man because most undocumented immigrants, either they're being paid under the table, which likely they're not even getting minimum wage, or if they're being paid on the books, they are paying taxes, and they never get to collect on those. They never get to file for some federal income tax return or state income tax return. So
there has to be some equitableness in this. I understand that if you've received the benefits of this country, not paid the taxes for that, but if it becomes such a barrier,
right?
It has to be somewhat fair.
Yes, more fair than tough, as their line has stated. We're going to get the opinion of somebody involved in this discussion, somebody actually fighting for dreamers around the country. Juan Esclante is going to be coming up. He is the Communications and Media Relations Director for DreamActivist.org. We're going to be speaking with him in just a few minutes. So stick around right here on Talking Left. Danielle and Shano here, and we'll be right back with Juan Esclante.
This is not normal.
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Look out, the fixers are coming. Top corporate chieftains and Wall Street gamblers want to tell Washington how to fix our national debt. So they've created a front group called Fix the Debt to push their agenda. Unfortunately, they're using fix in the same way your veterinarian uses it. Their core demand is for Washington to spay Social Security, castrate Medicare, and geld Medicaid. Of course, a group of pampered, narcissistic billionaires would not make a credible sales team for this dirty work. So Fix the Debt has recruited a bipartisan gaggle of former Congress critters to give their self-serving political gambit a softer public image, a sheen of high public purpose. With a budget of some $40 million, these elder statesmen are doing TV interviews, hosting breakfast sessions with members of Congress, making speeches about mutual sacrifice, and generally going all out to sell the financial elite's snake oil. But wait, being an elder does not automatically mean you're a statesman. Let's peek at the resumes of these so-called public-spirited fixers of the debt. Start with Jim McCreary, a former GOP lawmaker. While urging Congress to cut people's programs, he's also a top-paid lobbyist pushing Congress to give more tax subsidies to America's richest people and biggest multinational corporations. Former Democratic Senator Sam Nunn is a fixer too, but he's also paid $300,000 a year to be a board director for General Electric. Likewise, Democrat Erskine Bowles, a co-founder of the Fixers Front Group, is on the board of Morgan Stanley, drawing $345,000 a year. And former GOP Senator Judd Gregg takes about $1 million a year as advisor to and board member of such giants as Goldman Sachs and Honeywell. This is Jim Hightower saying, I wouldn't want this gang of fixers to pet my dog, much less touch my Social Security.
If you like these feisty pops of populism that Hightower zings out on the airwaves, check out the Hightower Lowdown. Jim's monthly newsletter provides the in-depth lowdown on what the greed heads of Wall Street and the boneheads of Washington are doing to us behind the scenes. With Hightower's saucy Texas humor and truth-telling populist perspective, the lowdown literally can lift you up. And get this, you can have the lowdown delivered to your mailbox or email each month for only $15 a year. Yes, 12 issues, only $15. Check it out, hightowerlowdown.org.
You're listening to WIN, Workers Independent News, a production of Diversified Media Enterprises. I'm Doug Cunningham. As auto companies in Detroit show off their shiny new autos of the future, auto workers were there to showcase the struggles of workers looking for brighter futures. Jesse Russell reports.
The Detroit Auto Show not only showed off the future of the auto industry, it also showcased the struggles of working people. A series of protests were held outside of the event throughout the weekend, highlighting everything from pushing back against Michigan's right-to-work law to unionizing Nissan plants in Mississippi. One woman at the anti-right-to-work rally this weekend said people need to stand up to corporate control.
The first thing is we have to overcome the fear that people have, and the media message and the corporate message that we should all be glad we have a job, and it doesn't matter what kind of conditions those jobs are.
One auto worker named Martin said one of the most important things labor could be doing right now is educating the next generation of workers.
If we can continue to educate and try to mobilize, just not inside the plant, but also outside the plant, let people know what's going on there, I think we have to be heading in the right direction.
A Korean labor union unhappy with a Hyundai Motors subcontractor has posted a petition on the White House We the People website. It calls on the Obama administration to pressure Hyundai to rehire temporary workers who were laid off. In Chicago, labor activists who support single-payer universal health care held their 2013 conference this week. Chicago Teachers Union President Karen Lewis delivered the keynote speech. Lewis said the 2012 Chicago teachers strike demonstrates the power of community solidarity as firefighters welcomed striking teachers into their homes for meals, and parents also supported them. She says labor must attract and energize young people if it is to have a future. Lewis says as workers everywhere face another year of struggles, community coalitions and solidarity is crucial, and workers need to take the fight to the streets of communities nationwide.
We need to continue to build coalitions. Labor alone cannot win this fight. If we don't have community with us, we will be irrelevant quickly. If we don't continue to energize our ranks, to me, the beauty of our strike was that there were so many people without a single strand of gray hair. Regardless of where you are, you still have more to do, as do we all. It can't be a bunch of phone calls, brothers and sisters, face to face, one at a time, person to person. Stop preaching to the choir, take off those robes, and get in the streets.
This newscast made possible in part through underwriting support from the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers and from OPEIU. You've been listening to WIN, Workers Independent News. For more information, visit laborradio.org.
It takes 12 years to create a graduate. It takes about the same time to create a dropout. And at the end of the day, the difference between a child becoming one or the other could be you. So United Way is asking you to make a pledge. Tutor a child who needs help. Mentor a kid who needs someone on their side. Volunteer to read to children. Because when a child advances, we all advance. Be a reader, tutor or mentor. Give, advocate, volunteer. Live United. Take the pledge now at liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Talking Left with Danielle and Shana.
Welcome back to Talking Left. We are live here on We Act Radio, WFIU PWC 1480 AM in Washington, D.C., along with all of our great online stations. Joining us now is Juan Esclante, Communications and Media Relations for DreamActivist.org, an amazing organization out there actually helping the people who need it. Juan, thank you so much for getting up early with us on a Sunday.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, we are thrilled to have you. Before we get into, the meat of this so-called immigration reform, tell us a little bit about Dream Activists and how people can support the organization.
Of course, DreamActivist.org is an online resource center for undocumented students. We essentially drive our work by collecting materials and bundling up together so that when people have questions about where they can get a driver's license in the state or where they can find scholarships to reach the university of their dreams, or if there's any programs available in their state that can benefit them, we make sure that information is available for them readily and accessible in a readily and accessible manner. Lately, what our focus has been is tackling low-priority immigration deportation cases, which means that if people come to us and say, "Hey, my brother is being deported," or "My mother is being deported," we draw up a campaign and we launch it through social media networks, and we educate the community around them as to how to tackle the issue. And our campaigns have been successful in the for the majority of the part, and we have gotten several folks out of detention. So our primary focus is to do this. We operate out of donations primarily. We don't have any sort of grants or any sort of major funders, so we do everything out of donations from the public. So if folks want to help our work, they can definitely do so by joining DreamActivist.org online.
Awesome. And again, for everybody, it's DreamActivist.org. You can also follow them on Twitter at DreamActivist. All those links will be up with our blog post after the show as well. The big news on immigration recently, Juan, was this so-called compromise from 8 bipartisan senators. And I think there is definitely some potential good in that bill. What is your take of this compromise? Do you think that this is enough to really change immigration policy?
Well, I think, it's very interesting the way that this has happened, just because you see the nature of the conversation changing in a rather dynamic way. You have, obviously the bipartisan group in the Senate, Marco Rubio, you have Chuck Schumer, you have the different power players who have a lot of influence over their colleagues, but also folks in the House, like, Representative Paul Ryan, people who have been really hard-headed on the issue are actually, eventually either changing the tune or seeking a compromise. And I think it's rather interesting the way that this is being proposed, just because you see, obviously, the demands of both parties being put into place when it comes to this. You have the Republican side saying that we need to secure the border, and nothing's going to happen until we secure the border. And the blueprint that the senators drew up, that's actually what you see. You see a huge portion of it is just the militarization of the border in and of itself exclusively. And after, you see things like the DREAM Act, you see the a pathway to legalization for the 11 million undocumented folks who reside in this country. From the conversations that I've had with colleagues and I, at the end of the day, it's rather interesting the way that the debate's shaping up, just out of the sheer notion that folks have a very skeptical opinion to this plan, due to the fact that border crossings have decreased, the border has actually been more secure than it's ever been before, and deportations are a record high under the Obama administration. So, a lot of folks are skeptical as to what exactly it means for them to further militarize the border, and make everybody wait for a pathway to legalization as to as to when they determine that the border is actually secure.
Yeah, that is probably one of my biggest concerns in this new proposal that they've put forth, is that the quote-unquote tough but fair path to citizenship is contingent on border security with no definition of what border security entails. I think what you just said of being skeptical of both sides of this debate is so accurate, where who do you trust here? The Republicans who absolutely pursued anti-immigration, anti-Latino policies in so many states, and then Obama, that is supposed to be, pro-immigration, who, as you said, the deportations are higher under him than every president combined. You also talked about the legal immigration system. Many people recently have spoken about how difficult that process really is and how long it can really take. Do you propose, or would you hope for, some simplifying of the legal immigration system in this bill as well?
I think, for folks out there who are following the debate closely, I think online the Washington Post released a small chart, essentially, as to what exactly the legal immigration system implies today. And the fact of the matter is that when you look at this chart, and it's very interesting as to how exactly, where the beginning of the so-called line for the legal process is, or how the legal process actually begins. And the fact of the matter is that any sort of proposal right now doesn't actually, it does upgrade the system as to how exactly is, people can apply and how exactly it's being handled, but it doesn't really change the nature as to how exactly the line looks. So that chart really wouldn't change that much. If anything, it will be down. I mean, it will be simplified in size, but the complicated nature of navigating the immigration system doesn't really change. And I hope that once we get into the actual debate and the actual language of proposals, because I've been talking about blueprints this whole time. Once we start looking at the actual proposals, whether it's from the House or whether it's from the Senate, hopefully we do see some simplification and some, very common sense steps as to how exactly people can migrate to this country in a legal way.
Yeah. And one of the things I did really appreciate in this proposal is, a little more security for the dreamers, those seeking education or military or community service in order to stay in this country. I think it's foolish that we allow people to, be part of our education system and grow up and feel like part of this country, only to later turn our backs on them. And just to remind everybody, we are speaking with Juan Esclante of dreamactivist.org. What is the feeling you get from the dreamers regarding this legislation and regarding how Obama has handled their pathway to citizenship?
I think when you look at the overall Dream Act movement, you see that it's literally almost split down the middle, just because a lot of people have still a lot of confidence in the president and try to keep him accountable, but, are cheering on this type of proposal and looking at it with a very sharp eye. That means that, if there's any hiccups on the way, they'll definitely put his feet to the fire. And there's other folks who just, question the entire thing, right out of the box, just because there is, what the president has been a huge cheerleader for the issue. It has definitely taken him more than, than an administration to act on this. If we go back a year ago, in 2012, when the Deferred Action Program, a program that essentially defers or stops the deportation of young undocumented people such as myself for 2 years and allows them to get a work permit, that type of program took 3 years in the making. Hundreds of thousands of people deported under the Obama administration. He's closing up into 2 million people deported under his administration. And, one must wonder what exactly takes the president that long if he's so committed to family unification, to the issue, to making sure that we keep the best and the brightest individuals in this country. Yet, he makes no effort to defer deportations. He makes no effort, to move, the Congress up until his second term. And obviously there was a lot of things during his first term. I don't doubt that he's a busy individual. But at the end of the day, we need to make sure that, whatever we do, we don't only keep the president accountable, but those people who are, crafting these policies accountable as well, whether the Democrats, whether the Republicans, in Dream Activists.org, we don't really play partisan politics. It's just about making sure that we keep everybody honest at the same level.
Yeah, and in this new legislation, or rather proposal, One point that kind of worries me, and I'm curious if your take on it, are these payment of back taxes and fees. I've always been under the impression that, many undocumented immigrants pay taxes in, through their paycheck, their sales tax, and never have the opportunity to ever withdraw that money in the form of a tax refund. How are people taking this so-called payment of back taxes? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a serious question. Just, I'll use, my personal experience on the issue as an example. But, my family and I have always paid every single dime that we owe the IRS, whether it's, taxes on our home or taxes on our paychecks, et cetera. So it's kind of funny, though, just like you say, at this, when you read this proposal that we have to pay back taxes, does that mean that do I show up with all my receipts from the IRS and I just hand it to them? Or are they going to slap me with a fine on top of everything, even though I've, been paying into a system that I haven't been able to collect for the past, 6-7 years? It's rather interesting, and I think it does alarm a lot of people because, we're not sure what kind of time frame this payback is going to be, ushered in. So, are they going to give us a time frame, a timeline? And if so, are people going to have a work permit to, earn a decent paying job?
Yeah.
A lot of questions are still floating around, and like I said, we're still waiting for that. Everything is just speculation up until the point that we see the actual bill. And until we see any sort of concrete proposal from the House or from the Senate, I think we're still kind of holding our breath a little bit as to what exactly the specifics and the details will be overall.
Well, absolutely. And hopefully, Juan Esclante of dreamactivist.org, hopefully you'll come back and discuss with us when those details and the actual legislation is put forward so we can get your take on it.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for joining us, and have a great Sunday. Happy Super Bowl.
Likewise. Have a great day.
Thanks so much. Juan Esclante, everybody, of dreamactivist.org. You can also follow them on Twitter at dreamactivist.
Optimism.
Yes.
I think very wise to be so, because just because someone says they're going to reform it doesn't mean they're actually going to reform it.
Right. But
because they would love to say we reformed it and say, now vote for us, and then have a bill that it really isn't reformed and it still helps their corporate buddies.
But
that's what concerns me.
Such a wonderful and prime example of the intelligent, dedicated, hardworking people that we need to be welcoming and, embracing in this country, not deporting.
If you're not Native American, your family was an immigrant at some point too.
Absolutely. So, we have got lots more coming up in store today on Talking Left. It's a big show, and we hope you stick around and spend it with us. We'll be right back here. Danielle and Shano, stick around.
It seems so far away.
Hi, this is Brad Friedman, your friendly citizen investigative blogger, journalist, troublemaker, muckraker, and all-around swell fellow from BradBlog.com. Join me for the Bradcast every Wednesday from 3 to 4 p.m. 1 hour of troublemaking and muckraking ripped from the pages of BradBlog.com and sometimes from the dark recesses of my mind. We'll have investigative interviews with newsmakers, we'll call out the liars, frauds, and phonies, and we'll even give kudos to the good guys if we can find any. Stories you won't hear anywhere else. We'll report on politics, elections, election reform, mainstream corporate media failure, media reform, global warming denialism, and everything before, during, and after. Join me for the Bradcast every Wednesday, now a full hour, 3 to 4 p.m., right here on Pacifica Radio's KPFK, and coast to coast and around the globe on kpfk.org.
You're listening to and watching
Filter Free Radio.
Filter Free Radio.
Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
Jacob Dean.
With Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
It's a redefining of the issue of not just the fact that, it's my fault, I need to go buy a Prius. I should get an electric car.
No. It's my fault for not stopping car culture as a whole. We don't need cars. I should have far greater technology right now than the internal combustion engine. It's a 100-year-old technology.
Where is my jetpack?
Exactly. But you get the point. The issue is far larger than just recycling or driving a hybrid. It's stopping the manufacturing of these systems, these industries. They need to stop. We will never have national health care guaranteed as a right for all as long as we have insurance companies that make money off of us. So the insurance companies need to go away. We don't need insurance companies. We need health care. It's the whole health insurance reform. What a lie that is, because we need health care reform. And the list goes on. So it's redefining the issue and redefining the argument.
FilterFreeRadio.com.
Arr, you mateys. Welcome to the ocean. I've sailed the seven seas 100 times and found something I like even more than me treasure. 'Tis the ocean, beautiful and clear. Right now I be sailing over the Great Barrier Reef. It just shivers me timbers thinking of all the fish and coral below me. Wait, what's that floating by? The plastic bag! By Blackbeard's eye patch, that's disgusting. Why did you know that many of these things come from folks throwing them carelessly on the ground? It be true. Lend us a hand by always recycling and disposing of your trash properly. Boys, get the plank ready. Somebody's got to dive in and get that bag. Any volunteers? Cannons. All right, fine. I'll do it myself. Cannonball! Find out what you can do to help keep the oceans healthy at keepoceansclean.org. Brought to you by the Keep Oceans Clean Alliance and the Ad Council.
Hey! Are you living in a progressive talk void? If so, be sure to visit leftwingradiostations.com. The state-by-state listing is a quick and easy way to find any left-wing talk radio station across America, from sea to shining sea. Your progressive talk nirvana is only a click away at leftwingradiostations.com. Be sure to like Left Wing Radio Stations on Facebook and share it with your friends. leftwingradiostations.com. United we stand.
SoFloRadio.com remains on the air with free archives thanks to the support of our listeners. Help keep us on the air by clicking the donate button on SoFloRadio.com. And thank you for your generous support.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. We were just speaking with Juan Esclante of DreamActivist.org and discussing the so-called Gang of Eights immigration compromise. And Shane, you were concerned about one of the points of the bill.
I am concerned with one of the points of the bill because one of the most well-known secrets when it came to immigration at this point, up until this point, at least from 86 till now, was the fact that while corporations supported Republicans who would use the xenophobic arguments, corporations really like undocumented workers to work for them because they're really inexpensive.
Right.
They want to keep that deal because there's a guest worker program in this, and the devil, again, is in the details. But what concerns me is that essentially the way they're wording it now is in those cases where there's jobs that Americans aren't willing to do, you're allowed to, therefore, there's applicants for guest worker visas or from other countries, and then you can employ them to do those jobs Americans don't want to do.
Yes.
My worry is that there will be lots of jobs America won't do for minimum wage, for the amount they want to pay.
Right.
We want you to work, backbreaking work 60 hours a week for minimum wage and no benefits. We can't get any Americans to take that job. So let's bring in, I'm worried about the downward force, not on, I don't mind having more workers here. I mind the downward force on wages.
Right. I would like those workers to be paid a sustainable wage
and also,
as well.
You better believe there's going to be something in this bill, if Republicans get their hands on it, that if you are on a guest worker visa, you may not vote and be part of a union.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Really concerns me. So if you can get a good number of guest worker visa people working in your shop, is when we're talking union talk, therefore you nearly need 100% or even 100% of the workers there who vote to unionize wouldn't be enough because there'd be greater than 50%
and
of people on worker visas.
This compromise does include the portions that you're worried about here. Allow employers in the way that you're worried about it. Allow employers to hire immigrants if it can be demonstrated that they were unsuccessful in recruiting Americans to fill an open position.
Right, but I want to know the parameters of that position, because let's say we can't get someone to do it for minimum wage, but we can get someone to do it for $12 an hour who's an American, but we don't want to pay $12 an hour. What would be the parameters on that in terms of how hard they have to? Because I could really see this as both a problem for unionizing and on top of a double whammy of driving down wages.
And a problem for, documented and undocumented immigrants coming here being taken advantage of.
Yeah, they're better wages than your home country, but you're being taken advantage of because part of being an American is having a living wage. At least it used to be.
Right. And there's actually, it's interesting that you brought this up. There's a great article at Common Dreams posted just this Friday. And they even show here a report by the Economic Policy Institute, just 2011, documented that an increase in farm workers' wages by 40%. So, giving them a 40% raise would only result in a household spending increase of $16 annually. So it would cost Americans $16 more per year to get their groceries just to pay these farm workers a higher, more livable wage.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've got a bunch of conservatives worried about inflation. I like inflation. I'm going to say
as long as wages
have until the 80s also inflated at the same rate as everything else.
Right.
That's the problem. Everything except wages is inflated. If we can just get wages to also lock in, but there's policies like these that are specifically to impact wages, getting rid of unions. They love high unemployment rates because then it's an employer's market and they can screw over their workers.
Well, I think this is something we do have to be mindful of. While many of us,
protect Americans and immigrants,
right? While many of us, including this show, have said that I don't care if it has to be done by the Republicans and Obama has to take his name out of it. If real comprehensive immigration reform that benefits this country and benefits those trying to become, citizens here, if it gets passed by Republicans, that is okay with me. They can take credit if it really benefits those who need it. However, I don't want that done at the expense of also being a giveaway to corporations. Things like these provisions saying it's okay to pay somebody below minimum wage because, quote unquote, an American won't be willing to do the job. How about regardless of who's doing it, we pay them a sustainable wage? Because just then, maybe these people who are migrating here to work would be eligible and be able to afford to become citizens.
And on top of it, they complain that the immigrants who come here use up so many social services. Well, that's because they're not paid a living wage.
Right. Maybe pay them enough that they wouldn't have to.
And therefore, then they'll pay taxes and contribute because they'll be making a living wage at a higher tax rate, and everyone gains, not just the 1%.
Exactly. Well, we have still 3 more guests coming up today, if you can believe that. We still have...
That means I have to talk twice as fast to get everything I have to say.
Yes, Mitch Malasky, David Bender, and David Pakman all coming up later in the show.
I'd much rather hear all of them than me, so that's perfect. I'm going to shut up now.
Lots great stuff in store, so don't go anywhere. You are listening to Talking Left, live on Progressive Blend, SoFlo Radio, and of course, We Act Radio 1480 AM in Washington, D.C. We'll be right back.
What is this? What's going on?
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
It's Tuesday, January 29, 2013.
Shame on you. Shame on Congress.
Superstorm Sandy disaster aid finally passed by Congress.
Green jobs, cleaner, greener communities, cleaner, greener transportation.
U.S. Transportation Secretary stepping down. Catastrophic floods in Australia while drought spreads across the U.S. Polls show climate action a winner with voters. Plus,
I can't imagine the leaders of Scotland could be so stupid
as to allow this to be built.
Who in New York is paying to protest wind farms in Scotland?
Who indeed? Answers to all of those questions and more straight ahead. From BradBlog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
I know America beat Tojo, we crushed Hitler, we put a man on the moon, but incrementally reducing CO2 emissions? That sounds like a lot of work.
Tell me about it, Stephen. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, a bit of personal news here today. We are now beginning our 10th year at the Brad Blog. We just passed our 9th anniversary days ago.
Wow, double digits. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And to you. What do you have for us today to kick off our 10th year in the Green News Report division?
Well, first, some quick headlines. A new poll from the Yale Project on Climate Change Communication finds that talking about climate action on climate change is a clear political winner with voters. The poll found 58% of registered voters will consider candidates' positions on global warming when they decide how to vote, and they support ending subsidies for the fossil fuel industry and regulating carbon dioxide as a pollutant.
So the voters like it, but the funders for the candidates, maybe not so much.
Yeah, not so much. The Australian military rescued over 1,000 people from their rooftops.
Why is there 1,000 people on the Australian military's rooftop?
Okay, yeah, maybe I could have written that better. The Australian military rescued over 1,000 people from rooftops.
That's better.
Thank you. After torrential rains from tropical cyclone Oswald caused deadly flooding in the country's northeast this week and damaged water treatment plants across 2 states. This is just 2 weeks after record heat waves and wildfires ripped across central Australia. In Southeast Africa, the UN agency UNICEF is pleading for donations to assist the country of Mozambique, whose small military has also been called in to rescue thousands of people from deadly, catastrophic flooding that has displaced more than 150,000 people in this poverty-stricken nation. In the U.S., drought spreads and gets worse in Midwest and Plains states for the 2nd year in a row. The U.S. Department of Agriculture this week declared much of the U.S. wheat belt a natural disaster area. In Science, a fascinating new study in the journal Nature Climate Change suggests that waste heat from major metropolitan areas could raise temperatures in areas hundreds of miles away. The scientists say computer models show that excess heat generated by buildings and industries and cars, in theory, may actually be changing wind patterns in the upper atmosphere, affecting the direction of high-altitude winds like the jet stream.
Despite this history of unbridled generosity, in our hour of desperate need, we have been left waiting for help 6 times longer than the victims of Katrina.
That was New Jersey's Republican Governor Chris Christie a few weeks ago, slamming his fellow Republicans in Congress for delaying disaster and recovery funds for coastal areas devastated by Superstorm Sandy. Now, a full 3 months later, Congress on Monday finally passed a $50 billion emergency relief fund for storm victims to start rebuilding. All 36 votes in the U.S. Senate against disaster aid were from Republican senators, including some from the Gulf Coast states that received disaster aid after Hurricane Katrina.
Wow, absolutely shameful.
Secretary of Transportation Ray LaHood, the sole Republican in Obama's cabinet and a big proponent of high-speed rail, has announced on Monday he will step down as expected. Energy Secretary Stephen Chu is expected to step down soon, meaning that all cabinet positions dealing with the environment and energy will be open.
And it's going to be interesting to see if they ever get filled, given the pack of Republicans in there who can stop any presidential appointment they want here.
Finally, a new ad on Craigslist New York offered to pay $20 in cash to anyone willing to show up to an anti-wind protest at the British consulate in Midtown Manhattan to, quote, protest wind turbines being built in Scotland and England. The paid demonstration was postponed as soon as this story went viral. We don't know who was behind it, but
Donald Trump doesn't like the look of them.
They're ugly. They are in the most beautiful land and coast anywhere in the world. And if they allow this madness to continue, they will destroy Scotland.
Yes, New York developer Donald Trump is trying to kill an offshore wind farm near his proposed golf course in Scotland. Yes, Donald Trump, we're looking at you.
Oh, he would never do something so underhanded as to secretly hire protesters, would he?
No!
You're fired, Donald. For more on that story and all the ones we couldn't get to today, please check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. While you're there, please consider a donation to help us celebrate the start of our 10th year at the Brad Blog. We've got some really cool premiums for you to check out, so stop on by and help us out to stay on your public airwaves. From bradblog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
This is Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. Thank you wherever you are checking us out on Progressive Blend Radio, SoFlo Radio, perhaps our home sweet home, TalkingLeft.com, or live on air at We Act Radio, 1480 AM WPWC in Washington, D.C.
The finest of all radio stations in Washington, D.C.
Absolutely. Where truth is our product.
Indeed. Get out there. Do something.
Yes, truth, actually. I'd like to get into somebody who has a little bit of a problem with that.
Yeah.
That whole truth stuff.
Gets in the way of his spin.
Yes. And, you know, we did talk earlier about the Conservative Victory Group or Conservative Victory League, whatever the heck nonsense name they were going to call it. About
Operation Conservative Victory.
Operation Republicans Eating Their Own. And it looks like that was continuing on Sean Hannity's show this week.
Well, Fox News ratings have I think they're at their lowest, in like
yes.
10 years.
Thank you. I was doing my own sound effects there for a moment.
It's right here.
Yes. Perhaps people are getting sick of the lies and propaganda there.
Well, you do remember that right after the election, we read some posts, some comments about Dick Morris and how even conservatives were coming around saying, you know, they're making gazillions of dollars to feed us.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know if maybe these were liberals going in there and posting them or whatever, but they had a point saying essentially, you fat cats are just feeding us what we want to hear, and you've essentially fooled us.
Yeah. I mean,
they lost credibility. Let's just put it that way.
Yes. And if Karl Rove wasn't involved in this Conservative Victory Project, I would actually say perhaps
they have a fighting chance.
Perhaps Republicans are trying to take back their party.
I think they are.
Yeah, but
Karl Rove has always been against. He went against O'Donnell. He went against Engel. The guy wants to win.
Yes, exactly. But he's as slimy as they come.
Absolutely. He wants to win so much he'll cheat.
Right.
The thing is that he does understand that the Tea Party isn't necessarily a good thing at all points. He hasn't been a big fan of Sarah Palin either, I don't believe.
No, but somebody who has.
Sean Hannity.
Yes.
Sean Hannity is a fan of anybody who listens to his garbage because his idea of Reagan is amazing. He has such a misunderstanding.
Yeah, Reagan wouldn't be welcome in Sean Hannity's Republican Party.
But he picks and chooses what to remember and what to forget about Reagan.
Yes, he does. And Pat Buchanan
recently... Pat Buchanan gets that. You don't get much more conservative.
Right.
I mean, wow. Came in and just... Sean Hannity's been schooled a bit this month. It's been a lot of fun to watch.
Yes, he has.
Irritating as hell, but at least there's people on there. He keeps inviting just conservatives, but they're finally calling BS on
Well, but
it.
I think it may all be related because you have Hannity being one of the biggest Tea Party backers, you know, and supporting all of these really out there candidates like Todd Akin.
Ideas.
And
Obama's a king and everything he's doing is unconstitutional. And
could it be that Pat Buchanan is part of the Conservative Victory Project? Why don't we play the clip and let the listeners decide?
He said the United States must eventually eliminate nuclear weapons. He said we must eliminate all nuclear weapons globally. He said that the Israelis are keeping the Palestinians like caged animals. His comments on what?
Sean, Ronald Reagan wanted to eliminate nuclear weapons. Would you disqualify him to be Secretary of Defense?
Ronald Reagan believed in peace through strength, and Ronald Reagan had a very different mentality than as does Chuck Hagel here. He wanted to get rid of
nuclear weapons.
He did, but he also believed in strength. The difference between him and Chuck Hagel is Chuck Hagel wants to pare down the military, so it doesn't have the gap of vulnerability that Reagan fixed after Jimmy Carter became president.
I wanted to run the rest of it because he asked in there, does Chuck Hagel not believe in strength? And what does Handy do? The typical conservative thing. I'm just going to keep talking and then go to the next person, which hilariously was a Democrat.
Yeah.
It was Bill Richardson, who I absolutely adore. Yeah. I think he's great. And he just kind of sat back and grinned like, if you guys are going to beat each other up, I'm just going to let you do it.
It was like the Republican primaries all over again. Bill Richardson just sat there with a smile on his face like, all right, well, this is fun to watch.
Yeah.
Anybody got any popcorn?
You know. And the funny thing is, Pat Buchanan could say, I knew Ronald Reagan. I worked with Ronald Reagan. Hannity, you are no Ronald Reagan.
Yes. Well, it's interesting to see that we saw Sarah Palin leaving the network, which so many people were thrilled about, and Dennis Kucinich coming into Fox News. We thought, hey, could Fox actually be trying to be more inclusive, to not be so staunch right wing?
Moderate a little bit?
Yeah, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, that was somewhat disappointing.
On the Progressive Voices top of the hour.
Yes.
You want to do this here? This is we tuned in because we'd seen Dennis Kucinich.
Yeah.
He'd been on O'Reilly a lot and, debated him. It was respectful, as respectful as Bill O'Reilly can be. We figured, okay, great. We're going to have a progressive on Fox. That's a good thing. They're going to talk over him. They're going to put 4 people against him. But former Representative Kucinich, he can handle it. Yeah. I mean, you do remember these types of speeches from Kucinich.
Up with health care for all. Up with education for all. Up with home ownership. Up with guaranteed retirement benefits. Up with peace. Up with prosperity. Up with the Democratic Party. Up with Obama, Biden. Wake up, America. Wake up, America. Wake up, America.
I know.
That was during the 2008 convention.
And it's such an awesome speech.
And to see him getting up on his toes, just, reaching high, reaching up the body, the posture, him, amazing.
Yeah.
Exactly. You want to say amen.
Yeah. You want to, give me some more of that.
And then what do we get when he gets on Fox? This is him on the Second Amendment, Dennis Kucinich.
The people are weaponizing themselves historically because historically, you go back to the beginning of the Constitution, it was to protect themselves against a tyrannical government.
I want to beat my head up against the microphone.
Yeah.
I won't because I care about our listeners and it would be horribly loud.
Yeah.
But it's very tempting. Anything that can make Hannity, the person we just heard get schooled by Pat Buchanan. Anybody that can make Hannity have this type of response is not someone I could believe gave that Wake Up America speech.
Beam me up, Scotty. Dennis Kucinich is the first liberal that seems to actually have an understanding of the Second Amendment.
Which he absolutely did not.
No.
In no way, shape, or form.
It's absolutely the opposite of what the Second Amendment was written and included in the Constitution for. It's just...
So...
It's amazing that...
So you have Pat Buchanan actually setting Hannity straight, and you have Dennis Kucinich going along with the Tea Party BS. It's like Bizarro World.
I know. Cats sleeping with dogs. It's just...
But let's get back to Hannity getting smacked around.
Oh, we have more?
Oh, there's 2 more clips. There's more Buchanan beating over Israel.
Oh, I got to hear it.
Here we go.
You should like
He's got a voting record that would look just like yours if he were in the U.S. Senate.
It would not look like mine, Patrick J. Look,
100% pro-life, Sean.
He says the Israelis, the Palestinians are caged like animals. His comments, he got burned badly by Lindsey Graham today. He looked foolish. And the same with Ted Cruz and the same with John McCain. He did not seem like he was equipped to answer a single question today.
Would you not? Well, look, obviously he's being political right now, but would Would you not agree? Even Israelis would agree that the condition of the Palestinian people now is not ideal. That's why they want a two-state solution. There's real disagreement with how they are treated in Gaza. Why can an American not say the same thing?
Patrick, Jay Buchanan, I don't think the Israelis have put them like caged animals or that, quote, they've been chained down for many years. Israel has been the victim of thousands of rockets fired into their cities. The Israelis are helping them.
You got to listen to the Israelis themselves. People like Ehud Olmert are saying we are becoming an apartheid state. That's the term they're using. That's the term they're using in Israel.
All right.
Did he actually use Pat Buchanan's middle initial?
Yes.
Was that like, the parent scolding?
Yes, Patrick J. Buchanan. How dare you contradict my Tea Party talking points with your information and facts?
Oh, if only we had a camera on Shano right now who's wagging his fingers and making an angry Sean Hannity face.
I don't know. There must be some fired bookers over there at that show or something.
It honestly makes me wonder if this conservative group, this conservative Victory Party group, is including Sean Hannity in the Tea Parties they'd like to unseat.
That would be interesting.
Would
be interesting.
Hannity is as right and conspiracy-filled and ridiculous as they come.
I don't even think he's that far right. I think he is far right if that's the way the wind blows, the conservative winds blow. If he can make money on it, he'll say it. I have no respect for the man whatsoever.
Yeah, me neither.
Zero respect for him. I don't think he believes in anything. I really don't believe he believes in anything.
Well,
he's a talking piece.
Yeah.
And if you are going to have people on there like Buchanan and Mukasey, who will play next, who are actually going to set him straight, because conservatives aren't always right. Even sometimes they are.
Right.
But he just rewrites history, rewrites the facts, and then spews them out it's like he practices his streams of talking points. He just, you can mouth them along with him after he's done it a few times. If they're there to actually battle against this and moderate that man a little bit, awesome.
Yeah. As
this is Mukasey. Mukasey was Attorney General appointed by George W. Bush, the guy who was taken to task for warrantless wiretapping and torture and all this type of stuff. Very conservative guy talking about. And Sean Hannity, one of his things is that Obama acts outside the Constitution. Everything he does is unconstitutional. Doesn't he know that he's a constitutional scholar? He thinks he's a king. So he brings it to Mukasey, who's an attorney, who's a federal judge, Attorney General of the United States, a conservative.
We have co-equal branches of government, right? So explain to all of us, if Congress has a role, the president doesn't get the DREAM Act passed, Scott Brown's elected to stop Obamacare, then they just use the reconciliation process. It seems to me to be, by definition, an abuse of power, a power grab, if you will. No?
Politically, it is a power grab, yes.
Politically, is it then unconstitutional in some instances?
I don't think it's unconstitutional in the sense that I don't think it's something that you could get a court to find unconstitutional. We can have a debate about whether it's consistent with the Constitution or not, but there is a limited number of things that'll get you into court to have that decided, and I don't think any of the things you've enumerated are among them.
Wow.
How about that?
And did Hannity actually have a response to that?
No, we were actually, it was the last segment. We were watching that live, and I was glad that someone put it on YouTube. I was like, wow, because I was yelling, no, that's not unconstitutional. That's not unconstitutional. That's not unconstitutional. And I was like, oh, Mukasey, great. And then he said, no, it's not unconstitutional. I was like, whoa. Wow.
Very interesting to think.
I'm glad.
I'm really interested to see what Fox is going to do here, because their ratings are in the tank, and they are obviously making some big shifts over there.
I think their ratings are composed entirely of liberals that tune in to laugh.
I've wondered the same thing. Their ratings consist of Media Matters interns.
And God bless them for it.
Absolutely. We have lots more great stuff coming up right after this break. Did you know that the U.S. Justice Department is finally breaking up monopolies?
It's about time.
It is. And we're going to get into that next here on Talking Left. Very important news, and it's related to Super Bowl. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here on Talking Left. Stick around.
This is going to be fun. It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
My name is Joe Thompson. I'm 29 years old and have a career that I love as a systems analyst. Career. It still sounds cool to say that word. I never could have gotten on this path without a college degree. And if the college me were here, he'd tell you.
I never would have gotten to college without big brothers, big sisters. I could have ended up anywhere, on the streets even. But college? Joe Thompson? Not likely. My big brother helped me out. He taught me I could do anything, at a time when a lot of people were saying just the opposite.
And to a 7-year-old, that means a lot. My big brother's name is Phil. And Phil is the reason that this 7-year-old grows up to be a systems analyst.
Whether you donate money or time, you're helping Big Brothers Big Sisters help a child. And that can last a lifetime. Start something today at BigBrothersBigSisters.org. Brought to you by Big Brothers Big Sisters and the Ad Council.
Breast health awareness is critical for all women, particularly African Americans, because we have an increased risk of dying from breast cancer compared to women of other backgrounds. At U of M, I'm doing research here and with women in Ghana to look for an inherited link that makes African and African American women susceptible to a more aggressive type of cancer. Finding this link, I believe, will make new treatments possible. But right now, making sure that you are properly screened is our best protection.
With experts like Dr. Lisa Newman, the University of Michigan Health System is a leader in cancer care. When you call our free Cancer Answer line at 800-865-1125, an oncology nurse will answer any questions you might have about the prevention, screening, and treatment of breast cancer and other forms of cancer. All calls are confidential. Call 800-865-1125 or visit uofmhealth.org/cancer answer line.
We're working to help everyone enjoy longer, healthier lives.
That's the Michigan difference.
Hey there, Matthew Filipovich here, host of the creatively titled Matthew Filipovich Show, which, by the way, you can hear every single Saturday from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. right here on 1480 a.m. We Act Radio. Now, I'm going to be honest with you people. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I like talking to smart people, people who are smarter than me, some of the smartest, funniest, most badass progressives out there. People like Glenn Greenwald, Naomi Klein, Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks, Jamie Kilstein, Allison Kilkenny, Alan Grayson, Jeremy Scahill, Jim Hightower, and more. That's right, I said more. Don't believe me? Well, tune in to the Matthew Filipovich Show every single Saturday from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. for some of the best in liberal talk, news, comedy, and interviews right here on 1480 a.m. We Act Radio.
Friends, David Schuster here, and all of us at We Act Radio are so proud of our neighbors here in Southeast D.C., especially one of our partners, the Ark. The Ark is at 1901 Mississippi Avenue Southeast. It's the home to some of Washington's best, including the Washington Ballet, the Levine School of Music, Boys and Girls Club, and the Children's Health Project. All provide a number of programs and services within the very same facility. The Ark is also home to the Ark Theater, the only theater east of the river, which hosts a variety of dance, music, and theatrical shows each year. Almost everything you could want is at the Ark, so stop by and see them. The Ark, 1901 Mississippi Avenue in Southeast. For more information, visit the Ark's website, www.thearkdc.org, or call 202-889-5901. The Ark, part of Southeast D.C.
You're listening to Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Yes, you are.
That's what I get for trying to pull a song off of YouTube coming out of a break.
I
wanted the Budweiser song.
You wanted the Budweiser song,
but
because
YouTube people, they mark things certain ways, and then it's their commentary.
You were denied your Budweiser.
At least their commentary
commercial.
wasn't FCC problematic.
That's true, considering you played it without listening to it first.
I couldn't because I was playing the break during it.
Yes.
Brilliant.
as we said before the break, the U.S. Justice Department is finally threatening to break up a monopoly.
It's about time.
Or prevent a merger from happening that would create one, rather.
The FTC, they've been essentially asleep for, 30 years, it seems, other than maybe going after, they went after Microsoft once.
Big banks, technology, phone companies.
Transportation, health.
Yes, food,
energy.
Monsanto. Yeah. There's a few issues there that us liberals would prefer.
So they're finally stepping it up.
They are. However,
what are they stepping it up on?
I'm not quite so sure it's going to be that big of a deal.
What is it?
They are stopping the merger between two top producers of beer.
Oh, are you kidding me?
Yes. Beer. That's when they finally get involved. Beer. Because they say that the merger of Budweiser and Corona would essentially put too many top beer brands in the hands of a single company.
And that would just be devastating. We might end up with limes in Bud Light. The tragedy.
I think they already have limes in Bud Light.
Oh, no.
Yes.
But the fact that we only have like 2 health insurance companies.
That's fine.
And maybe 3 oil companies and 5 banks.
Totally cool.
Cool with that. In fact, here, have some more banks you can suck up. Here.
I'm wondering if the beer lobby is not a big contributor to political parties.
What about Coors? Isn't Coors a big conservative?
Well, they're not.
And Budweiser is foreign now.
They're not included here. Yes, perhaps that's why.
Budweiser is, I believe, like Belgium.
I'm actually curious because one of the groups is Mexico's Grupo Modelo, and the other is Budweiser, which is now no longer a U.S. company. How do they even have jurisdiction to block that merger?
I honestly have no idea.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't even thought about that. I just thought it was interesting that the one time they actually get involved is beer. There's so many important industries that could use some regulations.
It could use some competition.
Yes. The Republicans are constantly saying they love competition, but
they really don't like it very much.
They really don't like it.
They like the markets all to themselves. They can charge whatever they want. And I would say that, it's hard to get what's called a barrier to entry is probably the biggest problem in these, it's not like you can say, oh, I just graduated from college, I'm going to start a bank, or I'm going to start an oil company, or I'm going to start an airliner, although one kid did actually do that. I think it was JetBlue. But those are difficult things. You know what? There's a lot of microbrews that actually turned into brew. There's not as many barriers to entry when it comes to the beer market.
Yeah, so you'd actually you would actually think they wouldn't have a case here.
Wouldn't have as big a problem. There are a lot of beer manufacturers.
Interestingly enough, as apparently the beer lobby is not a huge group in Washington, D.C., the carbonated beverage lobby may have some pull. In fact, so much pull that a CBS ad has been taken down. It was for a carbonated beverage product known as SodaStream.
We are big fans.
We are big fans. Many progressives are quite familiar with the product because it's advertised on many progressive shows.
And we saw the ad. It's a great ad.
Yes. Essentially, they put an ad that criticized Coca-Cola and Pepsi for contributing to pollution and, They
didn't even hourly do this. They were more saying you don't get rid of the bottles and use SodaStream.
Right.
But it had the Coca-Cola and the Pepsi logo. And I remember watching and saying, I wonder how they got away with using those trademarks.
Well, they hadn't.
Well, I don't think there's a trademark problem. I think CBS said, "Oh, Coca-Cola and Pepsi went to them and say we're never going to advertise on you again."
Right. Reportedly, CBS pulled the ad because of, quote, its direct assault on 2 big carbonated beverage makers,
which give us a lot of money in advertising.
Exactly.
Finish the sentence.
Yes.
Which isn't there, but
David Birnbaum, the chief executive officer of SodaStream, has issued a statement, and I think it's very interesting. Our ad confronts the beverage industry and its arguably out-of-date business model by showing people that there exists a smarter way to enjoy soft drinks. One day we will look back on plastic soda bottles the way we now view cigarettes, as a dangerous vice, not easily accepted feature of everyday life. Good for him.
Yeah.
I think we need to go out and buy a SodaStream.
I can't imagine an advertising going directly after your competitors. Huh?
Who would have thought?
No, it's never happened
You
before.
mean they weren't cowardly enough to do a fake-looking logo that everybody knows is supposed to imply a certain brand anyway?
Well, it sounds like even if they did imply one of those brands, they would have taken it down.
Yeah.
They didn't say because of trademark infringement.
Yeah, I just think it's really interesting that beer, no, can't have a monopoly there. Soda, Sure, no problem. God forbid somebody competitive enters the market. But yes, so this Super Bowl, drink some, microbrew beer and buy a SodaStream.
There you go.
How about that? We're going to be talking about the Super Bowl next, coming up with Mitch Malasky of the DC Sports Beat on We Act Radio. Lots of fun sports news on Talking Left. We'll be right back here with me, Danielle, and Shano. Don't go anywhere.
Confound it. You're right. It's brilliant.
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
In the scramble to fix the federal deficit, one of Washington's worst ideas is widely considered by political elites, including some Democrats, to be a good idea, even a painless fix. The idea is to raise the age of eligibility for both Social Security and Medicare, shoving it from 65 to 67 or beyond. After all, goes Washington's conventional wisdom, people live so much longer now, so it won't hurt to postpone eligibility and save a couple of years of taxpayer outlays to people. But, as economist and columnist Paul Krugman has pointed out, this bit of conventional wisdom is merely conventional, in the sense of trite. While life expectancy has gone up on average, it has not increased much for working stiffs, especially tens of millions of lower wage and poor workers. Unlike being a member of Congress, the work that these people do tends to require heavy lifting, which can make you old fast. Requiring them to do it even deeper into old age and to wait longer for medical assistance is, as Krugman bluntly calls it, cruel. Bear in mind, too, that working-class families are precisely the people who count on Social Security and Medicare. They don't have the socialized medical benefits and golden pensions that those pampered conventional wisdom spouters in Congress get. Oh, one more thing. The purported savings from this fix are so minimal as to be illusory. In fact, shoving ill or crippled elderly workers out of the cost-effective Medicare system will jack up America's health care costs. This is Jim Hightower saying, so raising the retirement age is gratuitous as well as cruel, but mostly it's severely ignorant. What's at work here is a policy-making elite that includes no working-class people, so it can cluelessly believe that making the lives of these Americans worse is painless.
Need an antidote to the progressive blues? Want some good news about how grassroots folks are rebelling against the corporate powers and winning? Well, here's an easy-to-swallow pill for you. The Hightower Lowdown. Hightower's monthly newsletter will give you the lowdown, even as it lifts you up. It's 4 pages a month, jam-packed with facts you can use, actions you can take, and Jim's own Texas humor, all for only $15 a year. To become a lowdowner, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
You're listening to WIN, Workers Independent News, a production of Diversified Media Enterprises. I'm Doug Cunningham. 8,000 school bus drivers, members of Amalgamated Transit Local 1181, are on strike in New York City. Amalgamated Transit Union International President Larry Hanley.
We are the common victims of a mayor who is a billionaire and completely out of touch and out of control. He has picked this fight, staged it, brought it about on his calendar, not on any other schedule. He has an open fight with every worker who is employed by him right now in the city. He is refusing to negotiate contracts with cops and firemen and sanitation workers and teachers. The people are the victims, and they should stand with us and tell this mayor to just cut it out and start being a mayor and stop being a billionaire.
The union says after 50 years of job protections and wage stability for school bus drivers, Mayor Bloomberg arbitrarily threw that out by putting school bus contracts up for bids among private companies. That means the workers could suddenly lose their jobs or have their wages and benefits lowered. The ATU tried to avert a strike over the issue, but Hanley says Bloomberg won't even talk to the union. Hanley says ATU school bus drivers are committed to getting school children safely to and from school. He says safety is enhanced by job and wage stability among drivers because qualified, experienced drivers stay on the job longer. Hanley says the people of New York and the union bus drivers are victims of a right-wing attack on working people.
This is Wisconsin and Michigan having come to New York City. It is a mayor who was on the same right-wing agenda, although sometimes he hides it, that Scott Walker has been on in Wisconsin. This is the right-wing Tea Party attack on working people, and people in this country really need to take stock of what's happening and stand up with organized labor in New York as they have stood with organized labor around the country.
French auto workers near Paris have occupied a plant to protest layoffs. Jesse Russell reports.
Peugeot Citroën workers near Paris have occupied a plant in protest of planned layoffs. The company is in the process of laying off 8,000 workers and closing that plant. According to a union representing the workers, nearly 300 have stopped production at the plant, bringing work practically to a standstill. There are roughly 3,000 employees at the plant, but the majority of the striking workers are on the production line. Europe hasn't shared in North America's rebound of the auto industry. The European Union saw new car registrations drop by 16% at the end of 2012. The union has been seeking early retirement offers for the workers who are over the age of 55. But so far, the company has been unwilling to offer such incentives. Peugeot's competitor, Renault, is also planning layoffs, but they're doing so by offering early retirement plans and not bringing on new hires.
This newscast made possible in part through underwriting support from the National Association of Letter Carriers. You've been listening to WIN, Workers Independent News. For more information, visit laborradio.org.
When I have an asthma attack, I feel scared. It's kind of like an elephant is on my chest. I feel like I'm choking. Sometimes my parents have to take me to the hospital.
You know how to react to their asthma attacks. Here's how to prevent them. Call 1-866-NO-ATTACKS. Visit www.noattacks.org or call your doctor, because even one attack is one too many.
I feel like a fish with no water.
Brought to you by the EPA and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. You know, it is Super Bowl Sunday, so technical question there. We had to get some sports news from Mitch Malasky and the DC Sports Beat. How's it going, Mitch?
It's going well, Danielle. How are you?
I'm good. You excited about the Super Bowl?
I am very excited. I'm here in DC where we are not quite in Ravens country. This is definitely Redskins area here in DC, but based on proximity, and a lot of us grew up, like myself, grew up as an Orioles fan, going to Baltimore to see Orioles games. There's a lot of excitement in the area for the Ravens, definitely, but Super Bowl Sunday is a national holiday here in America, so great day.
Absolutely. I see you're wearing a hockey jersey for Super Bowl. Are you just trying to confuse people, or are you just trying to mix all your sports together today?
Yeah, well, now that the Caps are back, hockey's back. Their labor situation was resolved. We got Caps at 12:30 today here in D.C., so we're that's first up. That's first on my list, and after that, maybe find a little purple and black to support the Ravens.
Nice. You have a big day ahead of you. Any predictions for Super Bowl, Mitch Malasky?
I think it's going to be a great game, first of all. I mean, these are two, very high energy, explosive teams. The sentimental pick has to be the Ravens. Ray Lewis's last game, for those who are unfamiliar, Ray Lewis is a Baltimore sort of legendary linebacker. He was their first pick. He started the same season as the Ravens did when they moved from Cleveland, and he is sort of the emotional heart of the team, and he has announced that he's going to retire, and his energy has really driven the Ravens through their playoff run to this point. They're not really expected to do as well as they have, and that seems to keep them going. On paper, according to most analysts and most everyone, the 49ers have a better team. They have a more explosive offense thanks to their quarterback, Colin Kaepernick, who's a second-year player but took over about halfway through the season, two-thirds of the way through the season, as the starter on their team for Alex Smith, their former first overall pick who went down with a concussion, and has really taken over and taken the league by storm, has been unstoppable, both with his legs and with throwing the ball. And I think as it relates to a lot of us here in D.C., it's very much thanks to Robert Griffin III, who, by the way, last night won the NFL Rookie of the Year award. But he... But as well, Robert Griffin really showed this league that you could play that a running and dual threat quarterback was possible. You could line up from a pistol lineup, which is essentially a shot where the quarterback doesn't take the ball from directly under the center. He's in a shotgun formation a little bit back, and then has a running back play behind them, which doesn't usually is an unconventional format, but allows the quarterback to run and use what's called an option play, where the quarterback can run the ball, and he has the option based on what the defense does to keep it and run, or to pitch it to one of his players.
Now I know what it's like when one of my family members who only watches sports tunes into this show. I just lost it. That's awesome.
Two in the weeds. Okay, yeah.
That's okay.
No, we love it.
I was with it. But.
Yeah. So essentially, the quarterbacks, Colin Kaepernick, Robert Griffin III, Russell Wilson, who is another rookie quarterback from Seattle, who made it deep into the playoffs, is really taking the league by storm. Also, they're doing it with both their legs and their arms, and not just that, they are all rookies, first-year players, second-year players, young guns, guys who have usually do not have this much success early in the league. So
yeah,
so it's really a tale of two stories in this year's Super Bowl.
Yeah, it really is, and I think even some watchers, viewers over in San Francisco may be rooting for the Ravens this week, today, because of the recent LGBT issues over there on the team. Do you think maybe speaking out against LGBT issues when you're playing in San Francisco probably wasn't the best idea for Chris Culliver and a few of those his teammates?
Yeah, it probably wasn't the most the best decision on his behalf, but I think it's actually garnered a lot of more positive response. I mean, both in the fact that obviously he came out with a very scripted apology message that preached more equality in San Francisco, but it's gotten a lot of backlash from different people, and actually it's brought attention to a lot of what's happening on the other side of the field with Brandon Ambadejo, who's a linebacker for the Ravens, who's been a huge supporter of gay rights and especially with the Marriage Equality Act that was just here in Maryland during the last supported during the last election cycle and won, which was a ballot measure here in Maryland. So I think this actual Super Bowl has been a real vehicle to discuss this issue and to make it to bring it to a national stage, and to and obviously the comments, I think, let people who wouldn't otherwise think about it sort of see how inappropriate they were, and I think it actually got more support for gay rights and gay marriage and the like as a result.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think professional sports has been a tough issue for the LGBT community for a while now. There are very few openly gay players in the entire broad arena of professional sports. But I think, it was a stupid saying. I think he tried to apologize, however scripted. It did give a chance for some of the other players who really support the community to be highlighted. And I think another great fact with this Super Bowl, somewhat unrelated, is that it's the first major Super Bowl, the first one in the sports arena down in New Orleans since Hurricane Katrina. So bringing a lot of good there as well. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely great for New Orleans to, the Super Bowl is not just a one-day event. This is really a week-long event. And what it brings to those cities, both financially but also emotionally and spiritually, is really great. So it's definitely awesome to turn into Sports Center on ESPN or pretty much any show on ESPN this week, and you see New Orleans in the background. They're down there, on the streets there with the people. So it's definitely great to see that. I think it's definitely also a reminder for why we need sort of the hurricane relief that we do need, and for which is just an issue in. Recently with Hurricane Sandy relief, this is why we need that sort of money, is to be able to have these events with the Super Bowl coming to New York next season. That definitely sort of even more reason to be able to support relief.
But I've heard New Orleans has not exactly put out the welcome mat for Roger Goodell.
Yeah, I mean, Roger Goodell is is certainly not a well-liked person.
And just
anywhere.
for viewers who don't know who Roger Goodell is.
Sorry.
Yeah, well, Roger Goodell is the NFL commissioner. He's pretty universally disliked, which some could say means he's doing his job well. I don't know. But,
if that's the case, Congress is great.
Yeah, exactly. But as long as everyone's a little upset at you but they have some reason to like you, I guess we'll see about that second part. But yeah, Roger Goodell, the NFL has gone through a lot in the past few years, and the NFL is a business, and that's a very tough thing for fans to reconcile with, because we don't see it as we see it as tradition, we see it as emotion, we see it as community. But Roger Goodell is the owner of a multi-billion-dollar business, and he has to do things that upset a lot of people, and unfortunately, there's a lot of people who've paid the price in one way or another for that, and so he is the face for what the evil NFL in one way or another, whether it's suspending players for too long or moving teams out of communities. The commissioner is the face for whatever evil the NFL is, or labor lockouts that we see most recently with both the players and the referees that season. So,
Mitch, you actually have a question from our chat room, and I got to be honest, I have no idea what this is related to, so perhaps you can answer it. But they want to know, what's the deal with the deer antler thing? I have no idea what that means. If you could explain it to me.
Yeah. So one controversy that popped up this week was that Ray Lewis, to add to the emotional story, besides the fact of who he is and that he's coming back, is that he was injured this year, a torn triceps, which is an injury that is very hard to recover from. But he recovered from somewhat ahead of time, pretty ahead of time during the season, and came back for the last game and for the playoffs to spur them on in this playoff run. But it came out this week. There was a story that said that he apparently used a banned substance that contained deer antler spray to aid his recovery. He would spray it under his tongue or something like that. So Ray Lewis's rebuttal is that this guy has been saying this for multiple years and is sort of a guy, the person who is making this claim is the manufacturer of said deer antler spray. And so it seems like a reason to have the word deer antler spray being said multiple times on multiple media platforms, and so he's sort of washing it off as a guy to who's a guy who's trying to sort of make it make his name for himself. So I don't know.
Well, then I'm sorry we gave him more press here. I had no idea what that even meant.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, nothing is sort of proven one way or another. I mean, but from what I can tell, not to say that drug testing is universal, and they're actually working to expand that in multiple sports for next season and for future seasons. But Ray Lewis hasn't failed any drug tests. He hasn't popped on anything. He never has in his career. And so I'm, at this point, more likely to give Ray Lewis the benefit of the doubt, given who he is and given all of that versus.
Yeah, typically,
sort of alleged story that's
I think
it's quite humorous for sure.
Yeah, when one person or one party in a story like that stands to make a profit for it, I tend to give credibility to the other. In the last couple minutes we have, or the last minute or so here, Mitch Malasky from DC Sports Beat, are you doing a show tonight with all the Super Bowl and the Capitals game? Are you?
No, we are off tonight. Tonight, not only will no one want to watch my show, I don't want to be doing my show during the Super Bowl. So no, we'll be doing a replay. That is the tough thing as sports fans. It is a little. We started the show in February of last year, which was really a perfect time. Sundays, there's really nothing going on, especially in the sports world. But once football rolls around, it does get a bit tougher, especially playoffs and Sunday nights. So we've been a little on hiatus. Not hiatus, but it's not on as consistently. We did a show last week. We'll be back on next week again.
I guess it means we're going to have to watch Super Bowl instead tonight.
Yeah, I know. Well, we will still be replaying a show. We'll probably be doing. Cool. I did actually a Jews in Sports special a few weeks ago. To dispel the joke from Airplane about light reading being a pamphlet of famous American or Jewish sports stars.
Well,
but so we'll be replaying that tonight. So if you want to get educated in the long and diverse history of athletics,
Or
do
for
that, but-
or for those who just want to avoid the Super Bowl, for who are not sports fans, they can still take in a little sports with education from the great Mitch Malasky. Always fun talking to you because you can incorporate the politics and the issues and the sports. You are brilliant, Mitch. Thank you so much for joining us this Sunday.
My pleasure.
Happy Super Bowl.
Yay! Anytime.
Go Ravens.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Look forward to it.
Great. Mitch Malasky, everybody. He does a show on We Act Radio Sundays, 7 to 9 p.m. called The DC Sports Beat. You can check it out. And, of course, the links will be up with our blog post.
Oh, yeah.
And you can always find stuff there at weactradio.com.
He lost me there with the yeah.
Well, he knows sports.
I'd have to go back and listen to it and learn again.
Yeah, he knows sports on a level we don't know sports.
No doubt.
And don't let him fool you. He knows his politics, too.
No kidding.
He is very involved and very, very brilliant. So we have lots more fun coming up. Still have David Bender, Progressive Voices, and David Pakman of The David Pakman Show in the next hour. So don't go anywhere. You're listening to Talking Left, live on We Act Radio. We'll be right back.
Hi, friends. This is Tom Hartman.
This is Stephanie Miller.
Hey, this is Hal Sparks.
I'm Brad Friedman. I approve of Nicole Sandler's RadioOrNot.com.
Radio or Not.
Radio or Not.
RadioOrNot.com. RadioOrNot.com.
RadioOrNot.com. RadioOrNot.com.
Hi, this is Tim Cormall from The Tim Cormall Show. Join me and my guests most weeks for a progressive roundtable discussion about politics, news, and other fun topics. We laugh a lot about the hilarious antics of the right-wing nutjobs, as well as have serious discussions about issues affecting all of our lives. You can check out The Tim Cormall Show at timcormall.com, and you can subscribe to the show for free in iTunes by searching for The Tim Cormall Show. You can also follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/Tim Cormall. That's CORRIMAL. So come on over and join in the fun at timcormall.com.
You never know who or what you'll hear when you listen to the Nicole Sandler Show at RadioOrNot.com.
Bill Maher, you're here in Miami on Friday night. You're doing a show at the Fillmore at the Jackie Gleason Theater. They just renamed this theater the Fillmore. And they put up a couple of psychedelic posters. So I guess...
Was it the theater Jackie did his TV show from?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
What I hear they did is put up 2 of those old Bill Graham posters and renamed it.
Yeah, I can't think of 2 different icons of show business.
Yeah, really.
Bill Graham and Jackie Gleason.
Yeah, why they just didn't play up the Jackie Gleason aspect, I don't know. But then again, this is South Florida.
Right. Okay.
Welcome to it.
I feel warned.
The Nicole Sandler Show, live Monday through Thursdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, or podcast anytime at RadioOrNot.com.
You know that the ice cream scoop has the power to make a child smile, and that by slowing us down, the traffic light can keep us going. You know that the golf tee brings friends together, that the mailbox keeps them connected. You know that the cataract laser helps you look to the future, while the pacemaker ensures that there's a future to be seen. You know that the lawnmower, the clothes dryer, and the elevator make life easier, that the blood bank makes life possible. You know that these things we count on every day started as ideas. But did you know all these ideas came from the minds of African Americans? Support minority education today so we don't miss out on the next big idea tomorrow. The United Negro College Fund. A mind is a terrible thing to waste. Please visit uncf.org or call 1-800-332-UNCF. Brought to you by UNCF and the Ad Council.
The most important online radio station.
It's easier than ever to listen to SoFlo. On the air and everywhere. On any computer, any mobile device, iPhone, iTouch, and anywhere you are, just hit SoFloRadio.com. Tell your friends about South Florida's radio network, SoFloRadio.com.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I know what boys like. I know what guys want. I know what boys like. I got what boys like. I know what boys like.
Welcome back to Talking Left with Shano's brilliant bumper music, as always. The waitresses, come on now.
Well, no one knows what the story is yet.
Yeah, I know. That was awesome. Yes, we wanted to report a very important story about Applebee's waitress that has been fired. Why, you may ask? For posting a receipt that was signed by a pastor complaining about the automatic gratuity adding to a party over 8. Yes, Pastor Alois Bell, I think that's how you pronounce her name, basically scratched out the automatic 18% gratuity that was included because her party included more than 8 guests, and put in 0 and included a note, I give God 10%, why do you get 18?
Wow.
Yeah. If that was the case, couldn't she have at least tipped 10%?
Well, no, because she's not God.
Well,
but the thing is, when I saw this, you know, obviously the pastors come out and said that was really dumb and all that. If you really are a person of God or whatever, I thought the thing was you gave 100% to God.
Yeah.
And where is it in the Bible that says thou shalt not tip more than thou shalt tithe or something like that?
I seem to have missed that in the books somewhere.
And if you do give 100%, isn't a fellow creation of God, your fellow being, part of those good deeds and helping out your fellow human being, your fellow man, your fellow woman?
Well, and the interesting part is in being questioned about this, and she did provide answers. She did, agree to be interviewed. Never once did she say that she had poor service,
right,
or that the person wasn't deserving of a tip, or that she felt that they already made enough per hour at all. She simply said she only gives God 10%, so why should she tip 18%? Which, by the way, let me just tell you, the check was for $34. So she made this big of a stink over essentially about $6.
Yeah.
Anybody who has ever worked in the service industry, or
we both have,
or who knows anybody that's ever worked in the service industry, it is hard work. It is grueling, long hours for typically very little hourly pay.
The hourly pay, the minimum wage is somewhere around
$2.15.
I think it may have gone up to $2.75 or something like that.
But okay, yeah, because that's going to make such a difference on your paycheck.
The way that you make your living is on tips.
Right. And you work very hard to get those tips.
And I know, as being a server, even when you do get a low tip, it actually affects your morale. You give less, not as good a service. It really it's kind of like a pitcher and having a bad day.
Yeah,
it goes downhill from there.
Yeah,
and one good tip, it really makes a difference. It's very unnerving to be in a tip position also, because your bills aren't going to change and they might even go up.
Well, and
every day you don't know if you're going to get great tips or lousy tips or what.
I completely disagree that this girl was fired for it. First of all, she did not make a big deal about this. She simply posted a picture kind of to be grouped among her friends on Reddit, just about
What's the name of the restaurant on the posting?
I can't tell in this picture, but
I just wondered.
Yeah. Well, she was specifically fired for violating the pastor's right to privacy.
The pastor doesn't have a right to privacy in that receipt.
Yeah, because her name was clearly identified in the signature and thus became viral. And she said that the Applebee's had ruined her reputation. How about being a jerk is what ruined your reputation? Somebody just actually called you out for it.
The pastor had apologized and said that was maybe I'm wrong.
She apologized to the church.
Oh, wow. I got
that
wrong.
Yes, she did not apologize to the individual. She said, I've brought embarrassment to my church and ministry.
Wow.
And she certainly didn't apologize for somebody being fired over it. Oh. The woman who was fired was quoted saying, I've been stiffed on tips before, but this is the first time I've seen the big man used as reasoning. Well said.
I hope that server gets a great job coming up and,
Absolutely. I think local businesses in the area should start asking her for an application.
I don't know anything else about the person, so I'm just saying based on this situation.
Yeah. Well,
wish her well.
We certainly wish her well and better tips in the future. Still lots more in store coming up. David Bender going to be joining us in just a couple minutes, so stick around. You're listening to Talking Left with Danielle and Shano, and we'll be right back.
everyone expected just a piece of fluff, but we wanted to do something important. You know, issue stuff.
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
It's Thursday, January 31, 2013.
From what I know, this is the largest decision we will be making as a state from a carbon pollution standpoint, certainly during my lifetime, and nothing comes even close to it.
Will Washington State ship dirty coal to China?
It looks like a tornado right near downtown Cartersville at this moment, slashing toward I-75.
Wacky winter weather strikes the southeast. Which kills more birds, wind turbines or house cats? ALEC pushes anti-science curriculum. Plus,
this will not be important for Qatar, but for all the region and elsewhere where they have the same climate as Qatar.
A green tech oasis in the desert.
All of those stories and more straight ahead. From BradBlog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
I mean, we don't have climate change coverage in America.
Hello, Jon Stewart. We're sitting right here. We can hear you. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, can you believe Jon Stewart would turn on us like that?
I know. It's as if he doesn't know we exist.
I know. All right. Well, we got some interesting weather news. A tornado in the middle of January down in Georgia?
Yeah, rare. January tornadoes swept across the southeast on Wednesday.
This funnel is about to cross the interstate here in Adairsville. We've got debris now flying to the left and center of this system.
100 cars were overturned on the freeway in that storm. One person was killed in Georgia, and that breaks the record for the longest streak between tornado deaths in the United States, 220 days. And that's because of the drought gripping the Midwest. Dry conditions mean fewer storms mean fewer tornadoes. And on the same day, Newark, New Jersey hit a record high temperature of 65. Groundhog Day is on Saturday. We'll see if Punxsutawney Phil gets it right this time. Last year, he failed to accurately predict the record warm winter. Imagine that.
Read the science, Punxsutawney Phil.
France is mandating energy conservation with a new law requiring all businesses and shops to turn off their interior lights overnight. Christmas lights and special events are exempted. Officials say it will reduce light pollution in the night sky across the country, and it will save the equivalent of the energy consumption of 750,000 households.
Not to mention completely unnecessary carbon in the atmosphere.
Which kills more birds, wind turbines or house cats? Fox News steps on the cartoon rake again on its website, lamenting that the Obama administration has failed to prosecute wind farms for killing hundreds of birds. What Fox didn't mention was a new study published in Nature this week that confirms cats kill 5,000 times more birds than wind turbines in the U.S. That's over 2 billion birds a year killed by cats in the U.S. alone. No word yet on when Obama plans to lock up the killer kitties.
But I'm delighted to hear that suddenly Fox News is concerned about birds.
ALEC is infiltrating science education. The right-wing American Legislative Exchange Council, or ALEC for short, which is used by corporations to spread corporate-friendly copycat legislation in the states, now has model bills in 3 states that mandate teaching climate change denial in science class in public schools.
Oy.
Look out, Arizona, Colorado, and Oklahoma. You could be joining Tennessee, Texas, and Louisiana. ALEC is heading your way. A record fine for Chevron. California regulators have slapped a nearly $1 million fine on Chevron for their massive refinery fire in the Bay Area last August. That's a record for the state and the highest allowed under state law. Investigators found, quote, willful violations in Chevron's response before, during, and after the fire, and they found that Chevron disregarded corrosion on aging pipes at the 100-year-old refinery located in a residential neighborhood.
Wow, $1 million. That could take them minutes to recoup.
Chevron says it will appeal.
Of course they will.
A big decision ahead for Washington State's new governor and climate hawk, the former Senator Jay Inslee. He must now decide whether to approve construction of new coal export terminals to ship U.S. coal to China. Coal use has fallen in the United States due to the glut of cheap natural gas. So the U.S. coal industry has made up the difference by doubling its exports of coal to China in just the last year. The proposed export terminals would mean a lot of new revenue for the state, but Governor Inslee, in his first press conference, admitted the projects could bring a lot of future climate change impacts.
It is decades or centuries worth of coal. It doesn't matter where it's burned, it ends up in Puget Sound.
Finally, a fascinating new sustainability project in the Arabian Desert. The Sahara Forest Project is a pilot project bankrolled by the tiny Arab nation of Qatar, part of its pledge to use its vast oil wealth to transition to renewable energy. The Sahara Forest Project uses and combines for the first time all current sustainability technologies into one development in the desert. Check out the video at our website, greennews.bradblog.com.
Doesn't Qatar own Al Jazeera?
Yes, they do.
Didn't Al Jazeera just buy Al Gore's current TV?
Yes, they did.
There you go, shilling for Al Gore again. For more on that story and the ones we couldn't get to today, please check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. While you're there, please help us celebrate our 10th year of troublemaking and muckraking. With a donation to the Brad Blog, we would certainly appreciate it. From BradBlog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
Cat class and I got cat style.
This is Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Welcome back to Talking Left. Thank you so much for joining us wherever you are listening. SoFlo Radio, Progressive Blend Radio, We Act Radio, 1480 AM, Washington, D.C. Joining us now is the one, the only, the political director of Progressive Voices and the host of Top of the Hour on the Progressive Voices TuneIn channel, David Bender. Happy Super Bowl day.
Good morning, and from the coast that I'm on, it is morning, so if I call you Shanielle and Dano, then you'll understand that this is the dyslexia that goes with an absence of sleep. There we go. The rooster, crowing at the dawn. I'll tell you something. I don't know if you're like me. I don't get to watch a lot of series television, and I was a fan of The Sopranos, fan of Mad Men, fan of West Wing, things that I would get addicted to. And now in this incarnation, there's really no time to watch them in real time. So when I get a window, I catch up on a series that everyone tells me I have to watch, and the particular one that I was up until 1 a.m. watching was Homeland. Have you seen it?
No, but it has been recommended by Shane's brother to us.
It's a remarkable show, and at 1 a.m, I won't give any spoilers away, but I'll tell you, I wanted to go to bed, and I did not.
So you are like us, essentially, that when it comes time to be responsible and go to bed, we revert to being 5. And
my favorite show is on. I want to one more show.
One more show. And now you can. It's simply the DVR. You hit the button and it's one more show. And that's the interesting thing, the time collapse of the 21st century, which allows you to do that. You don't have to wait. Back in the day, and boy, is this a long ago day, I remember that you had to wait 48 hours for the second Batman to come on. Batman, back before you guys, I'm gonna bet this, before you guys were born, or just about that time, Batman used to run on Tuesdays, and then again, new episodes on Thursdays. So you had Wednesday just to suffer waiting for the new Batman.
Well,
you didn't know that. You didn't know we were going there, did you?
I had no idea.
Actually, it was in the show notes. I'm kidding.
Well, one thing people no longer have to wait for is great progressive radio, thanks to progressivevoices.com.
And you guys, too, who are a part of that. And I have to tell you, we've had a lot of fun with the segments that you're providing on top of the hour. progressivevoices.com, you get the app, the TuneIn app. This is a channel now, and in this new modern era, the same era that allows you to watch 24 episodes of Homeland in an hour, you can also in a 24-hour period listen to Tom Hartman. You can listen to Stephanie Miller. You can listen to Ed Schultz. You can listen to Bill Press, all in the same place on the Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn, and you can listen to Shano and Danielle on top of the hour.
Yes.
And we are loving doing that because, having a weekly show here, we have to, we're all week long. We're like, oh, we want to talk about this right now, but we don't have a show until Sunday. And then we sit down and we watch the political shows. We're like, damn, they just did that. So the nice thing is we get a daily, this is what's eating at us, or this is what's really cool that's going on. And we get a 6-minute. We just love doing it. Thank you so much for including us, David.
Thank you, guys. And it is terrific. You have a wonderful piece that's been running, and we'll run it again about the NLRB and that decision and sort of the little ticking time bomb that's gone off with the possibility of recess appointments being eliminated. You guys have been ahead of the curve on so many of these issues, and it's nice to be able to do it in real time. We had a very interesting week. Speaking of things that are worth commenting on, we finally, the Senate went into its second day of business after a month.
Yeah.
The United States Senate is the only institution, talk about freezing time, where you can gavel it in at the beginning of the month and still call it one day, a single Senate business day, which lasted almost a month. And finally, Harry Reid had to take a vote on, or at least make a deal on what now passes for filibuster reform. And I got to tell you something, and this is enormously frustrating to me. We've been talking about this for years, that the Senate as an institution is broken. And Harry Reid, who I have interviewed, who I have a lot of respect for, people are running Harry Reid into the ground from the left. If you see the reaction to this, he sold us down the river. He had 47, maybe 48 votes, and that isn't enough.
Right.
The people who sold out filibuster reform were people like Carl Levin. I'm not positive. I think it was also Dianne Feinstein.
Yeah,
some of the long-standing Democrats. And why did they do it? Why did we not get real filibuster reform when even Harry Reid said, if I've got the 50 votes, that's what I'm doing? He wanted to back their play. The Merkley and Udall and the young senators who understood that the institution, this is why people are leaving, it is broken. Why? Well, I can't speak for the Carl Levin, John McCain deal, but everything has, in this kind of situation, what we see above the surface, that tip of the iceberg, and then what's going on below it. And these are deals that get made. These are horse trading deals. And I'm going to posit something for you. Let's assume Dianne Feinstein, and I believe, Danielle, as you said, she was one of those people who said she wouldn't go along with the sweeping reform. What has she got on her plate right now?
Gun control legislation.
Exactly. And who does she need to pass it, not get a new assault weapons ban filibustered by the Republicans? She needs some of those Republican votes to get to 60. We've got 55 Democrats. So if in her mind she is saying to a few Republicans, look, we won't take away the filibuster, but I need your votes. I need you to step up and take a hard vote on something you know is the right thing to do. This is how deals get made. It is not pretty. It's not good to watch, but when I want to look at it as black hats and white hats, I remember how much I don't know and how much none of us can know.
Well, it's very interesting that, hypothesizing that way, because there's also several other issues that could have contributed to some background deal. We have John Kerry easily getting the word is thank you, confirmed as Secretary of State. Hagel, which is insane that they are so anti-Chuck Hagel when he's a Republican. And, you have this approaching sequester.
Yes.
So there's so much that could be going on in these quote-unquote background deals. I think it's very interesting when pieces of legislation like this filibuster reform all of a sudden take a turn that we didn't expect. You know, my mind goes to the same place yours obviously did or does. You know, what happened in the quote-unquote smoke-filled chambers.
These are the things that, again, maybe Bob Woodward will reveal in his next book. But just wind the clock back a little bit. When the president put all of his political capital on getting to 60 votes for something that passes for health care reform, it's really health insurance reform, and it was certainly the minimal amount. It wasn't single-payer, it wasn't everything we wanted, but it's the first time in 60 years of attempts, more than that any president could get anything through this Congress and sign it. What was also on the table, if you remember back, guys, if you remember back, this was the time in which the president had to decide whether he was going to send more troops to Afghanistan. And if he had done what we now know he believes, which was to start phasing it down and pulling them out, if he'd done it at the same time he was trying to get Joe Lieberman to vote for health care, the 60th vote,
right,
he'd have lost Joe Lieberman. And we wouldn't have health care, and we'd probably still be in Afghanistan.
So do you think that there will ever be any hope of more of politics being done in a clear view of the public and less in these smoke-filled rooms?
No, I don't. And it is because these things are impossible for most people. This is why the founders invented a republic, a democratic republic, not instant democracy. If you put these things up to an American Idol kind of referendum in real time, the devil would be in the absence of those details, the absence of the nuance that goes on. I'm not saying it's a perfect way to do it, and it could well be that America, given the system and the institutions we have, is too big to succeed. Not too big to fail, but too big to succeed. I don't know that these systems anymore, 100 people representing 315 or 320 million, I don't think that there's any way of looking at that and saying that's rational. It's scaled up too big. Too many problems, too much on anyone's plate. People are still human at the end of the day, and those trade-offs are almost impossible given the complexities of the world in which we now live, which is completely interrelated. It was not what the founders anticipated, where we were supposed to be involved in our country, not the rest of the world.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Just to remind everybody, we are speaking with David Bender, the political director of Progressive Voices and host of Top of the Hour on Progressive Voices TuneIn channel. David, you have had a knack, almost uncanny, of making predictions on this show that seem to always come true. So with that, I was curious of your thoughts on the Chuck Hagel confirmation.
I think you'd ask me about the Super Bowl, really.
I was going to get to that.
I feel like Jimmy the Greek, you know, and I promise not to talk about the ability of African Americans to swim. God, my memory is too long. Here's the thing about Chuck Hagel. He was given good advice and handled it badly. He was advised by the White House not to show the temper for which he is famous. It would be like trying to tell John McCain not to show the temper for which he is famous. And whether McCain could pull that off, I don't know. But what we saw with Hagel was pathetic. The Chuck Hagel that I admire, the Chuck Hagel who speaks his mind, was neutered during those hearings. I think he will pass on a party line vote. It will be close, but he will win. I don't think they'll filibuster him, but the bottom line is he has been damaged going in. He has a lot to work on in this second term, an enormous amount where his voice needs to be his own, not some sort of sanitized version of Chuck Hagel. And watching, you know who's one of the most reprehensible people in public or private life? His name is John McCain.
Yeah.
Watching John McCain turn on his friend in the way that he did even if he disagreed with him, but to eviscerate him in the way that he did shows the mettle of this man. And I think John McCain is almost completely insane at this point. And I'm not saying that idly. I think he has lost it. And the problem is, if you've lost it and you're a sitting United States senator, you get to lose it in public and no one can stop you.
Yeah.
It's not just cranky. It's not just bad temperament. This is a man who is so self-serving, so venal, so narcissistic that he could say that he's still more proud than anything that he brought Sarah Palin into public life, and he can throw a man who is incredibly loyal to him, a decorated veteran, under the bus the way he did this week. John McCain is absolutely the epitome of everything that is wrong with our political process, because what happens when he does it? He's invited on the Sunday talk shows to talk about it more.
Yeah, as if that's different from any other Sunday ever. But David Bender, I would ask you who's going to win the Super Bowl, but you're always correct in predictions, and I don't want you to spoil it for me.
I won't spoil it, but know that you're talking to me from California, and
yes, we are almost perfectly in opposing cities.
You're
for
close
the
to Baltimore.
Yes.
I'm close to San Francisco, and
you already have the World Series. Come on, man.
Well, I understand that, and we want more.
Thank you, David, very much for getting up early with us on a Sunday. Go enjoy the Super Bowl and the rest of your day catching up on silly TV shows. I envy you, and I'm very jealous right now.
Thanks, guys. We'll look forward to having you back on the Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn.
Absolutely.
Take care.
Have a great week.
You too.
David Bender, everybody. Again, he is the political director of Progressive Voices, progressivevoices.com, and he is a host of Top of the Hour on the Progressive Voices TuneIn channel. So check it out. Download TuneIn. It's a free app, and you just go and find the Progressive Voices channel and listen to great programming 24 hours a day. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. So we've got to run to a break. We are a few minutes late, and we don't want to get behind because we still have David Pakman of The David Pakman Show coming up in just a few minutes. Don't go anywhere. This is Talking Left, and we will be right back.
Hey, it's Hal Sparks from the Hal Sparks radio program Mega Worldwide, and this is Talking Left.
We got no plans at all. Evil man's always transcending. Fighter like sheep, swallow everything. Always simpletons or pretending. We got no plans.
It's your moment of clarity from LeeCamp.net. These corrupt maggots will do everything they can to make sure you don't know what's going on. They will do everything in their power to keep you in the dark while they treat your state like their own personal piggy bank. A piggy bank they're making love to. And that's where the insult pencil actually came from. That's how thin their has to be to fit in that little slot on the top of the piggy bank. And you may think I've run astray of the point just now, but you're so very wrong. We're only just getting started. 90% of the animal behavior that comes out of our politicians only continues because they're able to keep it a secret, keep it quiet, to muffle the screaming of the victims. But the truth is out there. And as we all know, the truth will let you pee. I'm not sure I have that expression right. I learned it while lip reading. But luckily, sunlight kills these mother... It burns them out like ants under a magnifying glass. And the first step is to find out just how many swine your state holds. How big the ogre orgy is. And the State Integrity Investigation did a great job of this. They carefully analyzed each state, poring over immense amounts of data, and then gave each state a score. My home state of Virginia, for example, made me proud by coming in as the 47th least corrupt state in the Union. That's right, only 46 states are less rotten. Yeah! Who says Virginia isn't for lovers of corruption? 47th? Jesus Christ, that means the only places filled with more vile lies, treason, greed, and deceit are Georgia, South Dakota, and the Walmart boardroom. We even beat South Carolina. Do you have any idea how filthy low you have to go to be sleazier than South Carolina? You have to be up to your neck in mud while licking the undercarriage of a diseased rodent, and that rodent is a cousin to Rupert Murdoch. If you're curious, some of the categories each state was graded on were public access to information, political financing, executive and judicial accountability, and also how fat and angry the meter maids are. Virginia's meter maids achieved a score of Kathy Bates in the movie Misery, just barely falling short of a score of Boulder from the Indiana Jones movie. Ironically, one of the things Virginia did not get an F on was the category of redistricting. Trying to remedy that, this week Virginia's Republicans used the fact that one Democratic state senator was in D.C. for a thing called the inauguration to force through a redrawn map that would provide them a permanent Republican majority. They gerrymandered the state so hard it has dark purple bruises. If you ask a map of Virginia congressional district what happened to it this week, it will tell you it fell down the stairs. But don't believe a damn word of it. Go to stateintegrity.org and find out where your state ranks, and then out these sleaze buckets, these inflammatory scum birthing generators. Don't let them hide in the shadows anymore. That's been your moment of clarity from LeeCamp.net. If you like this video, you would like another video I did on the corruption steroids known as ALEC. Click here for that. Also, check out the Moment of Clarity book and ebook wherever books are sold online. Thanks a lot. Keep fighting.
No plans at all. Evil man's always transcending. Fighter like sheep, swallow everything. Always simpletons or pretending. Jenny got a gun. Jenny got a gun. Dog did just begun.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle, and Shano. We were just speaking with David Bender about the Hagel confirmation hearing. Well, there's been a lot of hearings recently. Of course, the Benghazi hearing, the NRA hearing, the Hagel's confirmation hearing, Kerry's confirmation hearing, and apparently Wayne LaPierre, who for some reason was invited to the hearing on gun control.
Yeah, we'll discuss this with David Pakman.
Yes. Got into it a bit with Chris Wallace this morning. Did he share?
Yes. We seem to have.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Enforce the federal gun laws, which we do not need to do now, against gangs with guns, felons with guns. My gosh, in the shadow of where we're sitting right now, gangs are out there in Washington, D.C. You can buy drugs. You can buy guns. They are trafficking in teen-year-old girls.
I understand there are lots of problems out there, and this isn't going to solve all of them.
Our government is letting them...
But you can't say that, first of all, the gangs don't commit the mass murders. Adam Lanza wasn't a member of a gang. James Holmes was not a member of a gang. You talk... One of the points of that ad that I want to ask you about is you made it a class argument. The rich, the elite,
sure, they have bodyguards. Sure. They have security. Sure. And Mayor Bloomberg has it. Mayor Bloomberg has bodyguards.
I'll tell you somebody else who has security. You do.
Sometimes we've had there's a
on Capitol Hill you had security.
You talk about
today you have security.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about hypocrisy right on the open. We've had all kinds of threats come.
Does that make you an elite, an out-of-touch elite, because you have security?
I don't deny anybody the right to security when they need it. What I'm saying is, it is ridiculous, Chris, for all the elites and all the powerful and privileged, the titans of industry, to send their kids to schools where there's armed security, to have access to semi-automatic technology, to have access to
First of all, I don't know anybody who has armed, I don't know anybody elites who send their kids. My children went to the same school that the Obama children went to many years ago. There were no armed security there.
A third of the schools in the country already have armed security.
I understand that, but this idea of an elite class is just nonsense.
Capitol Hill right now.
How about that?
I tell you, every once in a while, Chris Wallace really makes me happy. He usually pisses me off enough times in between, but every once in a while, I'm really pleased with what he has to say. I think he could have been a lot tougher on Wayne LaPierre, such as, why don't you support the regulations that your own members do?
Well, we don't know that wasn't another part of it. We'll watch it later. But the thing is that it's not just about going after Republicans. If you're going to go after Democrats, just go after conservatives as well, and he is doing that there, and I respect that.
Yeah.
Actually, he's asking some questions that we would like to ask him, and that's what a real host's job is to do, David Gregory.
I'm really interested to see if we'll see journalism return to Fox News.
I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, I'm not holding my breath, but they know the ratings are down. They've tried.
We have a 6-minute break coming up, and I'd pass out by then.
Yeah, all right. We're going to be right back here on Talking Left with the one and only David Pakman of the David Pakman Show. We're very excited to speak with him, so don't go anywhere. This is Talking Left with Danielle and Shano live on We Act Radio. We'll be right back.
I'm David Schuster of Take Action News, and you're listening to my favorite show other than my own, Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
The moon sinks low on the horizon as though it's trying to hide. Frightened animals flee into the woods, even though nothing seems to be chasing them. Nature has turned topsy-turvy. It can mean only one thing. The legislature is back in session. I've seen enough state legislatures in action, Michigan, for example, Florida, and of course Wisconsin, to know that our Texas bunch doesn't have a lock on lunacy, but we certainly have more than our share of loco lawmakers. Take George Lavender. Yes, please. This right-wing peer of the lower chamber became a hero of the Kooky Caucus in 2011 by sponsoring and passing a bill intended to save us Texans from an unspeakable horror, energy-efficient light bulbs. Because of a 2007 federal law enacted by that notorious lefty president George W. Bush, light bulb makers were required to produce high-efficiency bulbs to replace the old energy suckers. "Over my dead body," cried Lavender. It was his Alamo moment as he rose in defense of the holy right of Texans to waste as much energy as we damn well please. To counteract the big bad Fed's outrageous attempt to save energy for America and save money for consumers, Lavender's law invited bulb makers to set up shop here and freely produce the old-style high-wattage bulbs. Where else but Texas? Imagine how proud Davy Crockett would be to know that he died to make this possible. Unfortunately for Lavender, major bulb makers were already profiting from the burgeoning conservation market, so they had no interest in going backwards. The most disappointing thing to me, Lavender now says dimly, is that we haven't found anyone willing to put in a plant. This is Jim Hightower saying, and that's why the moon hides and animals flee when legislatures convene. It's scary to see so many 5-watt bulbs sitting in 100-watt sockets.
If you like these feisty pops of populism that Hightower zings out on the airwaves, check out the Hightower Lowdown. Jim's monthly newsletter provides the in-depth lowdown on what the greed heads of Wall Street and the boneheads of Washington are doing to us behind the scenes. With Hightower's saucy Texas humor and truth-telling populist perspective, the lowdown literally can lift you up. And get this, you can have the lowdown delivered to your mailbox or email each month for only $15 a year. Yes, 12 issues, only $15. Check it out, hightowerlowdown.org.
You're listening to WIN, Workers Independent News, a production of Diversified Media Enterprises. I'm Doug Cunningham. This weekend in Philadelphia, hundreds of labor and civil rights activists will commemorate the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. with a conference called We Are One, Workers' Rights and Civil Rights. The focus will be on the work the labor movement has done in unity with community groups nationwide to protect the vote and to expand workplace democracy. This year marks the 50th anniversary of Dr. King's 1963 March on Washington that reverberated through the ages to the cadence of his I Have a Dream speech. Hundreds of thousands of people rallied then in a call for jobs and freedom. The Philadelphia Conference will honor Dr. King's legacy while celebrating the bond between the labor and civil rights movements. Nearly 15,000 Teamster Costco workers are voting on whether to approve a new 3-year labor contract. The Teamsters reached the tentative agreement with Costco on January 10th. The union says the deal keeps the thousands of Costco workers among the highest-paid retail employees in the country with the best benefits. Teamsters President Jim Hoffa says Costco is a good example of a thriving company powered by a strong union workforce that shares its success with its workers. The deal includes wage increases each year and strengthened seniority language. The current Costco Teamsters contract expires January 31st. The workers' votes on the tentative agreement will all be counted by February 19th. 32 billionaires and corporations were able to match dollar for dollar what small donors gave to the Romney and Obama campaigns combined. Jesse Russell reports.
A new report from Demos and U.S. PIRG called Billion Dollar Democracy showed that more than 3.7 million individual small donors provided $313 million. U.S. PIRG democracy advocate Blair Bowie said during a press conference on Thursday that nearly 60% of Super PAC funding came from just 159 donors, contributing at least $1 million. She also said that nonprofits who could protect the identity of donors were some of the biggest contributors to the campaigns.
Of the outside spending reported to the FEC, 31% was secret spending coming from organizations that are not required to disclose the original source of their funds.
The report also found that dark money accounted for 58% of the spending by outside groups on presidential television ads. Dark money is a term describing funds used in a campaign that doesn't disclose its sources before votes are cast. Bowie said the report finds that a handful of special interest groups have greater influence over the political process than tens of thousands of small donors.
The bottom line is that our current system provides plenty of opportunities for special interests to push their narrow, profit-driven policy preferences at the expense of the greater good for the vast majority of Americans.
You've been listening to WIN, Workers Independent News. For more information, visit laborradio.org.
Hey, Dad, how do you throw a curveball? How do you build a fort? How do refrigerators run? How do fish learn how to swim?
Kids ask a lot of questions.
How high can you jump?
But you don't have to know every answer.
How many phone numbers are there?
Because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent.
How do cell phones work?
There are thousands of children in foster care who don't need every question answered.
What's electricity?
They just need you.
What's the moon made of?
For more information on how you can adopt, go to adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Don't take your guns to town, son. Leave your guns at home, Bill. Don't take your guns to town.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. We are very, very excited about our next guest, internationally syndicated political television and radio show host on 150-plus TV and radio stations, DirecTV, Dish Network, iTunes, YouTube, and everywhere, Mr. David Pakman, host of The David Pakman Show. We are so excited to speak with you, David. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, it's great to be with you guys.
Absolutely. For anybody who doesn't know, maybe they were hiding somewhere, David hosts a show. You can find out all information at davidpakman.com or follow him at David Pakman Show as well on Twitter. So the big news recently was Wayne LaPierre and his testimony that he gave at the gun control hearing. Just off the bat, any thoughts on whether or not it was even appropriate that the NRA was included in that hearing?
I don't really think so. I mean, I was stunned when Wayne LaPierre offered a response to the president's inauguration speech. Why is the NRA offering responses to presidential inaugurations? And same thing, I mean, they're not a gun safety group or a group that, in my opinion, is any kind of unbiased arbiter of what should be happening with firearms. I mean, they're basically in business, and I call it business, really, for one thing, which is to sell as many guns as possible for their gun manufacturer clients. That's really it. So that's not going to give you, that's not going to lead to any kind of sensible ideas. And as we saw when Wayne LaPierre either couldn't understand or was pretending not to understand how background checks would work, it became really obvious that he had no place there.
Yeah, it's very interesting that he as well as many spokespeople for the NRA continue to cite this mental illness aspect of the gun control debate, constantly saying we need mental health reform, yet they don't want to, actually subject people to background checks that may be able to check for these mental health issues they claim to care about. Isn't that just clear misunderstanding of the issue?
It is. I mean, it's a misunderstanding on two levels. Number one, it's just we have a system that's completely disjointed. In other words, there's a mandatory, everybody gets it background check to apply to work at McDonald's, a company whose food, I think, is, by the way, incredibly damaging to what we have as a huge obesity problem in this country. But if you buy a gun in certain ways, then you can actually do that without a background check. But then the other thing is this argument which LaPierre cites, which is, you're really just going to burden the good gun owners because the criminals are never going to agree to get the background check, which is just one of the most absurd arguments I've ever heard. Number one, a lot of people would just never try to get the gun if they know that there is this background check in place. And then certainly some people would try to kind of circumvent that and buy a gun from one of the good gun owners who got it legally or do some other things. But again, you're reducing the number of people that could do that, and you're eliminating the possibility of buying one from a person directly if you actually set up this system where even private sales require a background check. It's not perfect, but it would do so much. And Wayne LaPierre, and really he's pretending not to know that, is really dishonest.
And on top of it, if you enact those laws for uniform and universal gun background checks, then if you fail to do that, that's a prosecutable offense.
Right.
Whereas now, it just happens, and even if it does happen, there's nothing we can do about it, and they go on their merry way. And yet he
exactly. No, you're absolutely right. And it's dishonest to say that it would have no effect. And the other thing is, when people make Second Amendment arguments that it's somehow less freedom, there's so many aspects of life where we have what any reasonable person would consider to be freedom, but you still have licensing and regulation. I mean, this includes everything from, the life insurance industry, right? It's regulated. Companies aren't less free because if they say, I want to have a profitable life insurance business, I have to do X, Y, Z, be licensed this way, these are the rules. And the best example is automobiles, right? You're free to drive a car as long as you get a license, you go through a 6-month period of training, if you're under 18, and then the car itself also has to be licensed, insured in most states, and if you do X, Y, or Z with the car, you can get a fine or lose your right to even drive. Nobody's complaining about that, yet guns, which are designed to be fired at people, presumably, to defend yourself or to attack people, we don't need as much licensing there. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and absolutely, David. And just to remind everybody, we are speaking with David Pakman, host of The David Pakman Show. Check out his website at davidpakman.com, and you can find his show just about anywhere. What do you say, and I don't agree with this argument personally, but I keep hearing it from the right, is that you have a right to own a gun, but that driving a car is a privilege. How do we, as progressives or as responsible gun owners or whichever group wants to refute that argument, how do we fight that talking point?
Yeah, I think that this is kind of the wrong argument for a lot of people because if we want to talk about rights, you open up a lot of strange doors. And actually, going back to Wayne LaPierre, that's a good example of one. When he started talking about gun ownership as a God-given right. First of all, if we for a second just put aside that term and say, okay, maybe what he means by God-given right is natural rights, the ones that Thomas Hobbes or Locke or Paine, talked about. And really, even if you want to look at those, that actually goes completely outside of the Constitution. So I think a lot of times when people start wanting to have conversations about rights, you're just going to get very mixed up. I had this guy, Ben Shapiro, on my show a couple weeks ago. He's this conservative that everybody was conservatives were so thrilled about how well he did with Piers Morgan. And he started going down the rights angle, and he got very mixed up because when you really want to go by the rights and the letter of what the Second Amendment says, in absence of the Second Amendment talking about cars, like you say, then, okay, does the Second Amendment mean that people have rights to own any gun that is ever made at any time, or does it just apply to the guns that were available at the time that the Second Amendment was written? And if the answer is it's not absolutely any firearm of any kind, why are the restrictions that so-called liberals want to put on those any less valid than the ones that Second Amendment supporters would concede themselves? So I think the rights argument is not really where this is ultimately going to be won.
Now I know why LaPierre goes on Fox News Sunday and not the David Pakman Show. You would eat him alive.
Yes, absolutely. It's such a sad time in our nation's history that such violence is taking place, and that the rest of the world is looking at us as so backwards on this issue, and yet we're having to debate the most fundamental meaning of the Second Amendment as it was written at the time.
It comes down to the comma discussion is what I kind of like to refer to it as. And the saddest thing, too, is, we had over the weekend or maybe late last week, there was an incident where I don't have the details exactly right, but a 70-year-old kind of like a volunteer or off-duty part-time police officer who's a sports coach was walking with two women, and they were attacked by two individuals, and he was able to shoot one of them dead, and then the other scared him or wounded him enough. And this is being sent around to me as like, I'm deliberately ignoring these examples, and these are great examples of why people should have guns. And people are totally missing the point that the fact that this situation even comes up, where people need to be shot because they already are attacking you with guns, we're missing the point that that's the situation that we need to change, and that people in so many other countries just don't get. And there's a disconnection. Maybe if we had mandatory background checks, mandatory theft reporting, and all of these other things, the attack never would have happened because the two assaulters wouldn't have had guns. And people just don't get that. It's all the focus on, hey, someone successfully defended themselves with a gun in this one instance,
Right, and that one instance is such a small number compared to the people who are violently assaulted or killed with guns. I mean, if you were to take every report of gun injuries or death and respond to that article, you'd be emailing 24/7 every single day, for the rest of your life. Because those...
Well, you're making the macro argument, which is the correct one, which is let's not get bogged down in anecdotes, but look broadly at what these policies are doing. But I'm not even assuming the people sending me these articles are capable of that kind of thought, Danielle. So I'm just saying, even looking at this one article, wouldn't it be better for the two attackers never to have been able to get guns? And that's even a difficult concept, I guess, for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely, because they constantly say, well, the guns are there, they're out there, there's nothing we can do about them. And if those were military-style weapons, if they were missiles, that point wouldn't even come into the discussion. Nobody would be saying, well, they're already out there, so it's no big deal. We're not going to do anything about it. It's just defined by what you think is acceptable for people to have in their homes and in their possession. And apparently they're perfectly okay with a gun that can kill 100 people in under a minute. And you and I are not.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. So the president is supposed to unveil his proposal on gun control on Monday in Minnesota. Any thoughts on what that might entail? Are we going to actually see any real reform?
Well, my concerns are that because this debate has become so politicized, and I understand exactly why, because you have groups particularly made up of right-wingers that are pushing a certain agenda. But in any case, a lot of the so-called reforms that are being thrown out there by progressives with resistance from the right, while they're good intentioned, I worry that they're not actually that effective. So one good example of this is the assault weapons and the designation of assault weapons, and whether there's what different characteristics of the guns and those types of things. I mean, the reality is the homicide problem in the U.S. is mostly a handgun problem.
Yeah.
And obviously it makes a lot of news when so-called assault weapons, which is really kind of an ambiguous term anyway, are used in these attacks. And there's this huge debate over assault weapons shouldn't be banned. Who is to say which weapon is an assault weapon? And my concern is no matter what side of that debate you're on, really it's a handgun problem with the majority of homicides. So I worry that sometimes the reforms get a little bit away from what really should be the focus, which is why do we have a culture where so many people, given the fact that guns are available, decide to use them to shoot other people or to point at their daughter because their daughter got B's instead of A's, like we had an incident last week.
Yeah.
These things, why is that going on?
Yeah, it really is absurd, and I hope, like immigration reform, like we saw with healthcare, like we're seeing with guns, I hope that this incremental changes we see will lead to something bigger and broader and more realistic and useful in our society. But I'm struggling to say that at least it's a start. And would you agree with that, David, in just the minute or so we have left?
I'm also, I hope that it is. I'm kind of telling myself it's a start, but I am concerned. Even we didn't get to this, and it's a whole other thing, but even the mental health databases and how people who maybe as a result of being attacked by a gun in Newtown might need to procure mental health services, and then beyond the list is people who can no longer get guns. There's just a lot of concerning aspects about that idea, too.
Yeah, it's something that we'll have to watch for, and hopefully progressives can continue to fight for something that will make a difference like you do so often on your show. Thank you so much, David Pakman, for joining us. We really, really appreciate it, and have a happy Super Bowl Sunday.
Great. Thanks, guys. Great to be here.
Thanks. Bye-bye. David Pakman, everybody. You can, of course, find out all information at davidpakman.com.
You know what? The American president would do it.
The other piece of legislation is the crime bill. As of today, it no longer exists. I'm throwing it out. I'm throwing it out and writing a law that makes sense. You cannot address crime prevention without getting rid of assault weapons and handguns. I consider them a threat to national security, and I will go door to door if I have to, but I'm going to convince Americans that I'm right, and I'm going to get the guns.
So the American president was a gun grabber, is what you're telling me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wonder what Bob Rumson thought of that.
Yes.
I see that character reminded me a lot of John McCain in that movie.
Bob Rumson?
Yeah,
in that movie?
The one played by Richard Dreyfuss. I'm Bob Rumson, and I'm running for president.
Yes,
Do you
but
remember
would
now?
he wag his finger at Chuck Hagel like John McCain did?
I have no idea.
Yeah. So big thanks to David Pakman.
Yeah, that was fun.
Host of the David Pakman Show, davidpakman.com, David Pakman Show on Twitter. You can find it on virtually any cable network. So we will be right back with a big story about Groundhog Day. Did you know it's still up for debate? Stick around. We'll explain in just a few minutes. This is Talking Left on We Act Radio, and we will be right back. Thanks for listening.
It reflects the drama of the human experience, and isn't that the essence of art?
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Hi, this is Tim Cormall from The Tim Cormall Show. Join me and my guests most weeks for a progressive roundtable discussion about politics, news, and other fun topics. We laugh a lot about the hilarious antics of the right-wing nutjobs, as well as have serious discussions about issues affecting all of our lives. You can check out The Tim Cormall Show at timcormall.com, and you can subscribe to the show for free in iTunes by searching for The Tim Cormall Show. You can also follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/TimCormall. That's CORRIMAL. So come on over and join in the fun at timcormall.com.
You're listening to and watching
Filter Free Radio.
Filter Free Radio.
Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
Jacob Dean.
With Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
Spread the responsibility. We're all in this together, right? You and me and Joe and Mary and whoever, we're all in this together. So spread the responsibility around. Students, get active and strike on education issues. Journalists, challenge corporate censorship of the truth and the real issues that we're facing today. Police officials, refuse to impose orders that you know to be immoral or wrong.
Or illegal.
Or illegal, right? Torturing, that's bad.
FilterFreeRadio.com.
You never know who or what you'll hear when you listen to The Nicole Sandler Show at RadioOrNot.com.
Your view is not being represented in this country because all of our views have been corrupted by money and politics. Remember, 94% of the time, the candidate who raises the most money wins.
That's the fact that we need to drive home constantly. It's all about the money. Dylan Radigan, you rock.
The Nicole Sandler Show, live Monday through Thursdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, or podcast anytime.
7,000 high school students drop out every school day. That's one every 26 seconds. So here's a 26-second message of encouragement.
Hi, I'm Stacy. Look, I've been there. It's tough. And I just want to say, if you find yourself feeling negative, use it as motivation. Let it be like the fuel in the fire to keep you going. 'Cause the best is yet to come. Seriously, you're capable of great things you probably haven't even dreamed of yet. So don't quit now. See you at graduation.
Do you have 26 seconds to convince a student to stay at their desk? Now you can share your message of support at boostup.org. We can keep students in school. Visit boostup.org and take the first step. Brought to you by the U.S. Army and the Ad Council.
Hey, Dad, how do you throw a curveball? How do you build a fort? How do refrigerators run? How do fish learn how to swim?
Kids ask a lot of questions.
How high can you jump?
But you don't have to know every answer.
How many phone numbers are there?
Because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent.
How do cell phones work?
There are thousands of children in foster care who don't need every question answered.
What's electricity?
They just need you.
What's the moon made of?
For more information on how you can adopt, go to adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
The most important online radio station.
It's easier than ever to listen to SoFlo. On the air and everywhere. On any computer, any mobile device, iPhone, iTouch, and anywhere you are, just hit SoFloRadio.com. Tell your friends about South Florida's radio network, SoFloRadio.com.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. Yes.
Gotta wait for the oboes.
I got you, babe. You know, there's so many layers of wrong with you playing that song.
Why?
Because it's so early, and I can just envision that playing on an alarm clock like it did in Groundhog Day.
I would have to think that there are a lot of people have that as their ringtone alarm on their iPhones, Androids, and all those
that's
things.
True. They could. They certainly could. As of yesterday, which was Groundhog Day, 7:25 a.m. Saturday, Groundhog Puxatawny Phil failed to see his shadow, implying that there will be an early spring and that winter will leave us.
Implying? I thought it was predicting even.
Well, some...
Were there dissenters in the Groundhog community?
Some other marmot mascots disagree. That's a hard one to say. Like poor Richard, who is the slumbering groundhog of York, disagreed with Puxatawny Phil.
Really?
He, in fact, saw his shadow, and so he says there will be 6 more weeks of winter. However, he is a taxidermic groundhog.
So,
apparently, the
is
dead...
he a 3/5 groundhog, then?
The dead groundhog saw his shadow. Yes, the...
What about the Staten Island guy?
There's quite a few other groundhogs, which specifically do not agree every year. In Atlanta, Georgia, there is General Bewley. In Ontario, Canada, there is Wyerton Willie. Raleigh, North Carolina, is Sir Walter Wally. Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, there's Jimmy. Nice and simple, just Jimmy.
Where is that?
In Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, Jimmy the groundhog. Staten Island, New York is Chuck, which I like. Birmingham, Alabama is Birmingham Bill. And apparently, each year there is some disagreement between the groundhogs on whether or not there will be 6 more weeks of winter. So,
in fact, Sir Walter Wally forecasts 6 more weeks of winter. I wonder if they're going to secede over this. I mean,
yes.
There are some complaints that Puxatawny has too much consolidated power, acting like a groundhog king.
I've heard.
I mean,
in fact, those who disagree with him are now specifically calling on NOAA, the National Organization of Atmosphere, NOAA, and AccuWeather to, intervene in the discrepancy. NOAA says that Phil's forecasts have shown no predictive skill. And AccuWeather says he is only correct about 80% of the time.
Well, that's better than the weather forecast.
That's true. He actually has a better rating. However, he has predicted 6 more weeks of winter about 100 times and not seen his shadow, as he did this Saturday, only 16 times. So essentially, if you come out at the beginning of February, most of the time, it's going to still be cold for a while.
Yeah, and like the joke in the movie itself, do you predict an early spring? He says, I predict March 15th. Right. Of course, being the equinox, signaling the beginning of spring based on the way the planet spins around the sun.
Yes, 2 other groundhogs disagree with Puxatawny Phil. Dover Doug, which is actually a human being in a groundhog costume, says there will in fact be 6 more weeks of winter. And Susquehanna Sherman, a stuffed groundhog, says there will also be 6 weeks of winter. So there is some serious discrepancy in the groundhog weather predicting technology.
So they like making a Tenther argument?
Yes.
You know, are these the rights that should be left to the state groundhogs?
Yes.
We do not need a federalized groundhog.
You know, Phil gets all the attention, but apparently he's not doing a very good job.
Well, 80% is actually pretty darn good.
Yeah, but he's just always predicting more winter.
Well, actually, probably what he does is the people who handle him, not to, Santa Claus and all this, but they probably look at the Farmer's Almanac, which is pretty darn good.
Yeah, how do they determine whether or not Phil sees his shadow?
They ask him. Have you seen it?
I've seen it, but does somebody speak groundhog that I'm not aware
of? Yes, in groundhogese.
Okay.
You have seen the movie. You got the joke of the song, right?
Yes, I've seen the movie like 100 times.
In groundhogese, he actually says. I should play the clip for you.
Well,
I
last year
saw a shadow.
Last year, Puxatawny Phil also predicted
that was Bill Murray's brother, by the way.
Winter would leave us, and he predicted 6 more weeks of winter, and in fact, there was a much warmer spell.
Yeah.
So he was wrong last year. We'll see what happens.
Phil think about global climate change?
I think that means he'll see a lot of shadows.
No, the reverse.
Oh, okay. See, I get it all backwards. I'm confused because there's so many different groundhogs. Such important news.
Need a recount.
Yes, we need a recount. Anyhow, we want to send big thanks to everybody for joining us today. Juan Esclante of DreamActivist.org, Mitch Malasky of the DC Sports Beat, David Bender of Progressive Voices, and David Pakman of The David Pakman Show. Had lots of fun today. All of those links will be, of course, up with the blog post on TalkingLeft.com. Big thanks to Mike Hardiman for our awesome intro music. Thanks to George Rodriguez at SoFlo Radio for everything he does and everything he makes possible. And, of course, last but far from least, thanks to We Act Radio, Alex Lawson, Kimon Freeman, Pete Callahan, Rich Webster, Daniel Marins, David Schuster, everybody over there who makes the wheels turn. We really appreciate it. And
now in their second year.
Big thanks to you for listening. You're the reason we do what we do. So if you're listening on We Act Radio, stick around for Mark Levin and more progressive programming coming up next. Have a great Super Bowl, everybody.